What's up, hybrids? Welcome back to another episode of the Fandom Hybrid Podcast. This is Hanako, and I am here with the full crew today, Anthony, Lori, Mike, and Casey. And we are discussing the long anticipated, did I get country there? Long anticipated release of Black Widow. Finally, after many COVID-related delays, this movie is finally in theaters. We have all seen it. Initial thoughts?
They should have released this movie right after Civil War.
I agree.
Because it was so out of time watching it.
Yeah.
But other than that, I didn't love it, but it was a good, solid movie.
I liked it. I think that, okay, here's the thing. It's like most Marvel movies, I'll go out and I'll be like, yeah. But it's like, after I watch it, it's like, I'll have like, not necessarily buyer's remorse, but I'll actually replay certain things about it. And I'm like, okay, that was kind of stupid, but I still liked it. Oh, wait, yeah, that didn't make sense, but I still liked it. So there's like, there were a lot of points in this movie because at first, I went to go see it with my wife, Hanako, and her son. And we saw it like in 4DX where like the seats moved, and I literally almost got catapulted and thrown through the screen at one point because I adjusted my seat at the wrong time. But I digress. But it's like I looked at it and it was a great movie. I mean, like a lot of the action sequences and the fight scenes were just fucking phenomenal. But it's like upon further reflection, there are certain things about it that was kind of like, they probably could have left it out. They probably could have changed that. But I mean, overall, I mean, it wasn't a bad movie. In comparison to the movies that I didn't like in the Marvel Universe, like Iron Man 3, it's not that bad. It's probably like mid-tier for me, I think. And upon further reflection, it's like there was a lot of good stuff in it, and there's a lot of like things that they open for the future. And you can tell that this was supposed to come before certain things like Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Like it was supposed to, because at the end in the mid-scene credits you saw Val talking to her and stuff, and she was probably supposed to be introduced then. So I mean, other than that, there were a lot of things I really liked about it, but there were some things I was kind of like, man. But I mean, overall, it was a good movie.
Okay.
I'm sort of like Mike. I was like, when I left the movie, I was like, wow, that was really, really good. And then the more I thought about it over the weekend, I'm like, you know what? It was a solid summer movie.
Yeah.
It was really like action set piece. There wasn't a lot of meat there for me, you know. But it was a fun movie. I mean, I enjoyed it. I'm like, Mike, there were a lot of things I liked about it, and some things I was like, meh, you know. Like the Taskmaster thing.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
We got that. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Listen.
We'll talk
why?
About that.
Just why? I mean,
I don't make Punisher criminals villains thing that don't fit.
But but my final thought. But again, I thought it was a fairly decent movie. I mean, I would have been upset had I paid $30 for it to watch it on Disney Plus. But I'm not mad that I went to the theater to see it though. I'm not,
right.
No, I mean, there's some of us who don't go to the theater right now, which is understandable. And if I was one of those people, I would have paid the $30 for it, because I paid $30 for Mulan, because I wasn't going to the theaters when Mulan came out. So I understand that. It's just that for me, I wouldn't have been too happy about it, but I would have been okay. Yeah.
Casey, what about you?
I like the movie. I do agree with Lori. It should have came out way different in the timeline. But it was still a good movie. I did enjoy the fight scenes. I enjoyed David Harbour. He's hilarious. But it was good overall. But yeah, I think releasing it now after we know, we've been through Endgame and everything, and I mean, we know she dies at the end, so it's like it would have been better someplace else rather than after everything has happened.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Watching it, and especially I appreciate what they did as far as giving us the timeline as far as where it's happening, in the midst of the MCU. Like at the beginning when Secretary Ross is like, hey, we've got Barton, we've got Wilson, we've got what did he say? Incredibly shrinking
The incredible
convict.
shrinking man.
So we know that this is already after the fight at the airport. We know that this is when those three are already at the raft. So that does answer some questions. Like I've been seeing some things on social media. A lot of people are like, yeah, everybody keeps saying the Avengers are her family. Well, where's her family during this movie? I'm like, half of them were locked up and the other half, they weren't speaking to her because she let Cap and Bucky go, but that's a whole different thing. So I appreciate what they tried to do, but yes, I feel like they should have released this movie years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember exactly why it was delayed. I think at this point it really doesn't matter, but that was my main complaint. I didn't have many. That was one. And the other is, I feel like, yes, we got some of her backstory. I don't feel like we got enough. I feel like this was more so an origin story for Yelena's character than it was a Black Widow movie.
Yeah.
I think if Black Widow had been afforded the same respect as her male counterparts and had been given multiple movies, this would have been a good like midpoint, like second in a series of 3. I don't know why she's not getting the same multiple movie treatment that the others did, considering she is one of the original Avengers. That's a whole other story we'll have to get into. But I do feel like they could have given it to us early, and they probably could have given us more of her as a standalone character. I feel like her character deserves that. But other than that,
it was definitely better than Wonder Woman 1984.
Oh God, yes.
If it was a second movie, it would have been better than an origin movie.
I will submit that if they had left out that mid-credit scene, you could have stuck another Black Widow movie in there, and it would have still rolled with canon.
Yeah, I agree. So let's get into it. Starting off, we do get to see a little glimpse of Natasha's childhood. We start the movie out in Ohio, 1995. Natasha looks to be around 12 or 13 years old. And we see that she has a family at this point. It seems like a perfectly normal family. She has Rachel Weisz playing her mother, David Harbour playing her father, and Violet McGraw is playing the kid version of her little sister, Yelena. So we see them, typical American family. They're playing outside, having fun. They come inside, get ready for dinner. It's just, a regular scene, family gathering around the dinner table. And when Dad comes home, he seems kind of subdued, and he walks into the dining room and he immediately goes to the window and starts looking out. And this kind of raises a flag with the mom. And so she gets up and she walks into another room and they have a little bit of a conversation. She just looks at him and says, "Is it time?" And he was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "I don't want to leave." And he looks at her and says, "Don't say that." And they go back into the dining room and they're, talking to the kids. Yeah. Now she's giving these really pointed looks to Natasha. And of course, Yelena at this time is about 6. She's just a little kid. She's just doing her little kid thing. She's talking about what she learned today and what mom taught her about fireflies and blah, blah, blah. And he tells them that, he says, you guys remember that big adventure we always talked about? Well, today's the day. Yelena's like, yay. Natasha is looking so apprehensive, like, do we really have to do this? And, her mom, Melina, looks at her and she says, "I'm sorry." And what we find out is that something has happened. They actually have to be on the run. So they're getting things together. They're gathering guns. They're gathering a little bit of clothing. Natasha tries to grab a photo album. Melina tells her, "No, leave it." And I only mention that because it comes up later on. So they're driving away from their home. The song American Pie is playing in the background. And so you see all these different little things going on as they're driving. You know, they're singing in the car, or rather Yelena is singing in the car. You see them passing a baseball field. You see them passing the neighborhood kids. So it's just basically, it's almost like they're saying goodbye to their family life. And then when they get to a field that has an airplane, they get on the airplane. Basically, we find out they are running from the law. So something major has happened. They're running from the law.
Not just the law.
Not just the law.
They're running from
Shield.
Shield.
They're running from Shield.
Hydra.
What'd you say?
Hydra.
Well, it says Shield on the truck. So at this point, we don't know that Hydra has infiltrated. And we don't find out that, I guess, that they knew until later on, too, when Melina mentions it. But it says Shield on the truck. So we're going to go with Shield. So basically, they make this big escape and they land in Cuba. And during the escape, while there's shooting going back and forth between the father and the Shield agents, Melina gets shot. So it's up to young Natasha to actually fly the plane and get them to Cuba, which I'm hella impressed. Because like I said, she's 12, 13 years old at this point.
She's a natural.
So they get to Cuba. You know,
just like what's her name in Fast 9 who drove something for the first time as a manual and drove it like a pro. Yes, she's a natural.
But you know what? We're not even going to talk about that, because in this instance, Natasha probably actually has been trained. I mean, think about it. We find out later on they're a Russian sleeper cell. They infiltrated the United States. They, raised a family, the two girls. They apparently kept up this cover for 3 years. And while they were there, their whole mission was to steal some information and then to destroy the North Institute in Ohio, which, as we learned later on, was a SHIELD operation, Hydra operation. But when they get to Cuba, Melina is taken off the plane because she's been shot. The girls are, they're upset. They're worried about her because they don't know if she's going to make it. And Natasha starts apologizing to her in Russian. Mama, I'm sorry, but I'm scared. The father goes to meet, what's his name? General Dreykov. And that's the first time that we hear him being referenced as the Red Guardian. And he tells him, he's like, look, I don't want to do these kinds of undercover missions anymore. I want to get back in the field. I want my suit again. And Dreykov is like, well, we'll see. So Melina is placed onto a truck so that they can get her some medical attention. And as the girls are crying over her, one of the soldiers goes to grab Yelena and pull her away. This does not sit well with Natasha. And one of the things that we see at the beginning of the movie is that it seems like the girls are close. There's several years between them, but they seem really close. And Natasha does seem very protective of Yelena. So when the soldier goes to grab Yelena, Natasha kicks at him, steals his gun, and then starts threatening to shoot and kill anyone who touches her little sister. I was like, oh, okay. So we see this was very early on with her that she was trying to kick ass and take names. But her father, Alexei, gets the gun away from her. And one of the things that she tells him, she says, I don't want to go back. I want to go back to Ohio. I don't want to do this. And what we find out is she's talking about the Red Room. And she tells him, she was like, you can't take her. She's only 6. And Alexei says, you were even younger. And then they get sedated and the girls are placed into a truck. Now, the beginning sequence for the film, we see images of the girls in Ohio and what it looks like, their pictures of their life, Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, just, images of family life, but it's being interspersed with images of them and other young girls in a boxcar. I mean, it really resembles a lot of the images that we see of child trafficking and they're very disturbing. And it's kind of like, this is where we get to see kind of the origin of Natasha's story. So we see those images, we see the images of them being in the boxcar, and then we see soldiers coming to the boxcar to get the girls, and we see siblings being separated. The girls are screaming, they're being torn apart from each other. And General Dreykov actually points out Natasha because her earlier display impressed him. So he pulls her to the side and he tells her the Red Room will be your home now. Now, we all know what the Red Room is, or we kind of have an idea of what the Red Room is. Those of you who have read the comics probably know better than those of us who have watched the movies, but the Red Room is the facility where Natasha was raised, where she was trained. They basically take children and they make them assassins. And what they do is they take these children, and once they train them up, they basically implant them all over the world. And, you know, when I was watching this, it reminded me of, what is the name of that movie? Salt, the one with Angelina Jolie.
Oh,
the same thing. I was like, oh my God, they are really doing the same thing. It's like, you see the images of them. You've got the little girls sitting at computer screens watching all of this American TV to kind of like learn about American culture. They're showing them how to shoot guns, and they're doing all these different things to kind of condition them and train them so that they can go out and be spies in the world and just be ready and available whenever they're called. And, you know, I know this is a movie, but the fact that the imagery for me was very disturbing. Not just because it's young girls, but it's kind of like, this is not the first time we've seen that kind of indoctrination in movies, but you know that's got to be based on some kind of reality. And it's just one of those things where I was just sitting there like, oh, I know this is part of her story, but do we really have to see this? But I mean, we want an origin story, right? And we know that's a big part of where she comes from.
Right. I know that part was I won't say it was tough to watch, because my whole thought process in the beginning of the movie was occupied with, oh, this is like, you remember a movie Little Nikita with River Phoenix?
Yeah.
And The Americans, which was a TV show that just came on. I was sort of thinking, could we have come up with something a little bit more original in the beginning of the movie?
But I mean, that's probably very close to the reality. Like, if that's what they do, I'm not saying there is. I'm not very knowledgeable about what Russian spies do to train their people.
Well,
but I mean,
well, it's almost like I sort of wanted we talked about this earlier, kind of wanting an origin movie, like an origin story and more of her background. This seems like, oh, this was just sort of like an easy fast food way of doing it, because in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't really necessary for them to be an embedded family. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I could have done without it. It didn't add to the story or take away from the story.
See, I feel differently about that. I think it does add to the story, because one of the things about this film and about Natasha's character in general, we've seen throughout the run of the MCU, she's always said she doesn't have a family and that the Avengers are her family. So this movie very early on calls that into question, even though we do realize that, okay, this was a mission for her. But technically speaking, she had a family. Like, we don't know at this point whether she and Yelena are actually real sisters who were placed in this mission. We don't know that much about her background at this point. For all we know, Melina and Alexa could have been their parents until we find out that this was a 3-year mission and that it was set up that way.
Right, I got that, but I'm saying it could. I think I would have been more accepting of a different way of doing it as opposed to the way they did it. Like, I was sitting there watching it and thinking, oh, okay, well, they're like training to be, we're going to find out that this is like a fake installation, and they're training to be American spies, or they're living together to learn how to be, spies in America. I didn't actually think they were actually there, because I was thinking they wouldn't repeat what we've already
Good.
seen in The Americans and Little Nikita. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to. It was like seeing the same thing again, as opposed to I would have been more accepting of if they had done it in a different way. But I understand the whole family thing.
Mhm.
But like if they had already been together, you know, in Russia somewhere, you know, part of a simulation, training or practicing to do that, then I would have been it wouldn't have been a big deal to me.
Mm.
But since it was a repeat of something I had seen already, I could have done without it. That's just how I felt when I
Okay.
saw it. I was like,
Okay.
yeah. And then I don't know if they were trying to make a statement or if they were trying to bring attention to the child trafficking, but we know it goes on, you know,
Yeah.
and we know it's a real thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And some of those images were just hard to see because you know that is actually that's real.
In
Yeah.
2021, that is still going on.
It's still going on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree. But anyway, so after we see all of this disturbing imagery, like I said, we see them getting taken. We see them going through training. You kind of see Natasha growing up in the Red Room and seeing her doing her shooting training, doing this. And then, like I said, you see that interspersed with the photographs and the videos of her life in Ohio. And then after that, we also see some other imagery. And this will come into play later on when we learn just how far the Red Room's reach is. You start seeing photos of different images of war, images of politicians, not just American politicians, politicians from around the world. And then you start seeing other images with people circled. And basically, what it's trying to say is these are the people who are the Russian spies who have infiltrated, and they're living like Americans. You know, even at the beginning, Melina and Alexei had American accents. Speaking of which, Rachel Weisz speaking with an American accent, her tone was so nasally. I was like, who doesn't realize that's fake? Like her accent was very obviously fake, and it just bothered me. But anyway,
You know, I didn't realize it was her until like the end of the movie. I was like, oh yeah, that's her.
how do you not?
Because I haven't seen her in a movie in 20 years.
How about this? I since The Mummy, I've had Rachel Weisz and like, wait, she's supposed to be Scarlett Johansson's mama? Wait, now how does that work? Because she don't look like it.
She's only like
She's not that
looks
much
like
older than
10
she
years
is.
older than her. She didn't even look like her mother. And then, like
Right.
I said, I haven't seen her in anything since The Mummy. So
I'm
that's
just saying.
20-something
I
years
was looking at her like she still looks great, and like I'm supposed to believe she's a mama. No,
Rachel Weisz,
maybe for the
51
younger
years old,
girl,
she looks amazing.
she's
She does.
how old?
Wait, how old?
51.
Okay, but still, I believe her more for the younger one, but not Scarlett Johansson. No.
Right. She doesn't look like, she could have been their sister.
Yeah.
yes,
Especially,
Yeah.
especially when she put that goddamn suit on. I was
Mhm.
like, oh,
Lord.
right.
Like,
that was
listen.
my expression too. I
Listen.
was like,
She looked better in the suit than Scarlett Johansson did. And Scarlett Johansson wears the hell out of that suit.
Yeah. Okay, speaking of accents, shout out to Florence Pugh for being British, speaking with a Russian accent and an American accent, and like doing it seamlessly. I'm like, shit. I had to look up. I was like, is she American or is she I literally had no idea. I didn't know that was her in that wrestling movie. I was like, oh shit, that was her.
yeah, we had just watched it last week, and like, oh, you thought she was awesome before. Now she's really awesome.
well, see, my daughter,
Yeah.
she saw her recently in the movie Midsommar. I think that's how you pronounce it. She tried to get me to watch that movie, but after like the first 10 minutes, I was like, absolutely not. But I didn't realize that she was the one in that movie. I was like, wait a minute, she is all over the place. But when I tell you, you said shout out to her for her accents, just shout out to her for the whole fucking movie. Like, she stole this movie.
Yeah.
She basically carried the movie.
She did.
She was my favorite.
Like, I'm looking forward to seeing her in Hawkeye because like I want to see way more of her because she really did a great job. Like her dry humor in this was just like on point. Like the whole thing with her calling Natasha a poser, like that whole running joke made the movie for me. I was like, that shit.
And then
is
the
fucking
scene at the
hilarious.
end, I just cracked up.
Yeah.
She did steal the movie, but this is gonna sound odd. I think that by the time they finally got Scarlett Johansson to film this movie, she'd been playing Black Widow for some years, and you could almost see a little bit of fatigue with playing the same character. You could see that she was a little tired of being Natasha Romanoff. So that kind of came through for me watching the movie.
See, I didn't take it that way. I took it as her playing Natasha, who is on the run, who literally just got her ass beat and then continued to get her ass beat in this movie. And then she's having to deal with all of the emotional stuff coming back, trying to be on the hideout. She's trying to be off the grid because Secretary Ross is looking for her. The government is looking for her. And she's trying to be off the grid. And then as she's off the grid, here she goes getting attacked again. And not only getting attacked, she's getting attacked by some kind of armored super soldier who can mimic her moves. I think at this point, her character is tired. And then when she realizes that there's something there and she sees the picture that's basically leading her to a sister that I won't say she hadn't thought of, but she hadn't seen in 21 years. Now you've got to go back and deal with the emotional baggage of that past. I think Natasha was just tired. And I think Scarlett did a really good job of just portraying that. Like, she's going through so much at this point in her life. All of her friends are, like they said, the Avengers right now at this point are divorced because this movie takes place immediately after Civil War. She and Tony are not speaking to each other. Steve is on the run. Sam, Clint, and Scott Lang, they are in the raft. T'Challa is off in Wakanda trying to rehabilitate Bucky. She really has no one at this point. And then here she goes. She's running for her life again, not from Ross as she initially thought. She thought the Taskmaster was sent from Ross. But she's got a whole new mystery, a whole new thing she's got to deal with. And then she has to go digging up this past. She's got to deal with this sister who she doesn't even know. Like, once she realizes Yelena is alive, and of course Yelena is a widow, she's like, okay, I don't even know if I can trust you. Their first meeting, they're trying to kill each other. Then you have to go get the father that pretty much abandoned you. You have to go meet up with the mother who also pretty much abandoned you. It's just, that's a lot for a character to have to go through in the midst of all the other stuff that she's going through right now. So yeah, I didn't look at it as Scarlett being tired. I mean, she continuously says that she loves playing Black Widow. And I think she was just reflecting the energy of what the character is dealing with. At least that's the way I read it. So, but like I said, it's Secretary Ross. Now, given Natasha's history, you would think Secretary Ross would know better than to try to come after her. And, something about his character, just the government figures that we get in the MCU anyway. Like, I wonder if
Director Dick, they have a manual.
Right. Like, all of the people who are government people in the MCU is kind of like, y'all are so stupid. You really thought you were about to surround a person whose nickname is the Black Widow.
And knowing how she is, she's like, it's not like she's just some dude holding people hostages in a bank. She's a freaking she is a literal international super spy. But yeah, it's like you really think you're gonna corner her in the bathroom? Like, how does that even make sense? Like, okay, she's in the bathroom. Okay, we can corner her. No, you're not. If you think she's in the bathroom, you need to look everywhere else.
She wasn't even in the same freaking country.
Not in that
she was in Norway.
Right. She was on a boat.
Yeah, like my thought was like, dude, she told you she had a life before the Avengers or S.H.I.E.L.D. That's number one.
Right.
She was already
she said, I had several lives.
And then turn around and we had just seen her kick some aliens' ass. in the alien invasion.
Right.
And then the freaking robot who kept multiplying. She was fine. So you gonna send some regular dudes after her? Dude. This
I mean, and
not
she
gonna
said
work.
it. She was like, "This is quite embarrassing for you."
It was just.
on,
Don't
dude.
embarrass
Right.
yourself.
Well, he was doing a good job of it. I mean, I felt bad for General Ross because, like the comic books, like the cartoons, he's always one step behind, and he can never ever do anything right. In fact, he makes things worse. So I was like, oh, this is cute, But as far as Natasha, she really, okay, so she enjoys playing the role, but in this, she just wanted to go to the beach somewhere, Tahiti, who knows,
I mean,
I just felt
she
bad.
just wanted to get away and just kind of, I guess, escape everything. I mean, think about it. The people who you have surrounded with, the people who, as you say, are your family, everyone is fighting.
Mm-hmm.
This big reveal just came up about Tony and the Winter Soldier. I don't even know if she knows at this point, because I think she was already on the run at that point, because like Secretary Ross says, she's being pursued right now for violating the Sokovia Accords and for assaulting the King of Wakanda, which is T'Challa. And he's talking about when she kept him from going after Steve and Bucky in the airport. She told him, she was like, look, I told you I would help you find him. I didn't say anything else. T'Challa at this point is pissed because he's still after Bucky, thinking that Bucky was the one who killed his father. So yeah, of course T'Challa's probably gonna be like, okay, you know what? She helped them escape, arrest her. I mean, who wouldn't? He was well within his right to do so. I mean, think about it. At that time, they weren't even friends. They were more so acquaintances. Like, they only met at the Accords because she was there to sign. That was when they met. He had no loyalty to her.
And she had none.
And she had none to him. Her loyalty was to the people that she was trying to protect. And she did that. So now she has to go away. She has to kind of get off the grid until the heat is off of her. She's in Norway. She's on a ferry. She pushes her phone overboard so that no one can get in touch with her. No one can track her. This is another thing. There have been some complaints. Like I said earlier, people were like, where were the Avengers? Why weren't any of them helping her? Natasha went off the grid. What do you do when you go off the grid? You make sure nobody can find you. She got rid of her phone. Think about it. In this day and age, who the hell remembers phone numbers? I don't. My phone numbers are in the phone. She was trying to make sure nobody had a way to track her. Nobody had a way to find her. So that's why she was alone. And plus, I'm going to be honest, if they had brought even one of the Avenger characters into this story, it would have become an Avengers movie and not a Natasha movie.
Very true.
But I'm telling you, Ross, just embarrassing, because they go in, they think they're about to find her. They go into this bathroom, and then that's when we see her come out of the bathroom, but she's on a boat, like we said. They're in some building still. I don't know. Are they in New York? Are they in, I don't even remember. I don't know where they are, but regardless, she's not there. And her, it's so funny because even while she's tired, and you could see that when she's in the bathroom, she's washing her face, and you can see she looks like she's been crying. She's even wiping her eyes. She's just like, she's probably just stressed, like, oh my God, my life just fell apart. And Ross is coming after her, and she still has time to make a quip. He was like, you look like you're the one who needs some help. She's like, you're the one who doesn't look so good. Is this your second trip of my like, she basically just told you, dude, you look old. You don't need to be coming after me.
Side note, if this dude doesn't hurry up and turn into the fucking Red Hulk,
right,
I'm just gonna stop watching. Okay, I'm not gonna stop watching Marvel movies, but everybody knows that he's supposed to be Red Hulk, and he ain't changed into the Red Hulk yet. I'm like, and he over here having heart attacks and bypass. He knows he's gonna take some kind of thing and turn him into the Red Hulk. Can you go ahead and do that shit now? I mean, goddamn. Okay, how long we gonna wait for that?
Get it. We may not get it for a while, or we may not get it at all. I mean, I understand because, he's about 3 movies due.
I mean, look, it's like he's gonna get older, and they're gonna. And by the way, they did a shitty job of it on his makeup. Like, he looked terrible.
I think he was supposed to look terrible. I mean, think about it.
I mean, he looked like
you are dealing with an international crisis at this point. You've got 3 Avengers that are in lockup. You've got 2 of them that are on the run. Tony Stank is ignoring your phone calls. And so he got some issues going on.
Yeah, but it looks like he just had a really bad dye job. Like he was just too blonde. I was like, why is he so blonde? He can gray. It's fine. But he's old. It's like that's one reason I think they should go ahead and make him the Red Hulk, because it's like that way you can CGI him and just use his voice, because I mean he's not getting any younger.
Well,
I'm just saying.
I don't know. I just think Ross need to go sit down somewhere, because him dealing with Avengers, that's not helping his health. Like if he's only had 2 triple bypasses at this point, dealing with all of them, yeah,
he due for another one.
Yeah, dude, go sit down. Go sit down. But so anyway, after we see Natasha kind of going off the grid or on the boat on the ferry in Norway, we go to Morocco. And let me tell you, they do a lot of traipsing around in this movie. We go from Ohio to Cuba to Norway to Morocco to Budapest. And Budapest. Budapest. I'm American. I say Budapest. So we go to Morocco. We see that some ladies in black who we know are more widows, they're tracking a mark. And when she makes them, one of the widows goes after her. And when the widow finds her, tracks her down, they kind of have a little hand fight. And she stabs this woman and she dies. But before she dies, she sprays the widow, who turns out to be Yelena, with a red substance. And that red chemical, when it explodes, it does something to her. And she kind of shakes her head like she's coming out of a trance. And you can immediately see like the change in her demeanor, the change in her personality. Like she was very focused at first, very mechanical, I guess you could say, in the way she was pursuing the mark. And then once the substance got into her system and she shook that off, you could see her being a little more human. Like she's trying to figure out where she is. She looks down at her hand. She sees she has a knife. And then she looks at the lady on the ground and she drops the knife and she's like, Oksana. So she knows who this person is. And the person gives her a vial of the red substance and she tells her, save the others. And then she dies. And then one of the other widows is calling for her, Yelena, what's your status? What's going on? What's your status? And Yelena cuts into her leg, which that makes my skin crawl. Anytime I see like any type of spy movie or whatever, where people have trackers and they just like so nonchalantly just dig a knife into their flesh and just cut these trackers out like it's nothing. That just makes my skin crawl. But I mean, she's a widow, so I guess she's trained to take that kind of pain. So she takes the tracker out and she picks up this case that Oksana had with some more of the red vials and she takes off. And so the widow calls into General Dreykov and tells him that one of the widows has basically gone rogue and asks if they can activate the Taskmaster protocol. And so we see the Taskmaster, I'm not going to be able to say that word. So we see the Taskmaster. We see that Taskmaster watching video of Clint and T'Challa fighting at the airport, which where did they get the drone from? Like, who was watching that fight? How did they know to be watching that fight? I'm just a little curious. Were there surveillance cameras that were like right over that fight that we didn't know about? Probably. I mean, look, you gotta realize Tony was cooperating, so they're probably listening in on his stuff. And besides that, the stuff that they were filming with him and with T'Challa fighting was well into the fight. So by the time they got there, they probably already figured out that something was going on. So they were like, okay, deploy drones, see what the fuck they're doing over there, because obviously it's a big fucking fight. So I think they cleared out didn't Tony say he cleared out the airport before they started fighting? Yeah, he did. So they had to know something was going on. So they monitored it with drones, obviously, just in case it got out of hand. Okay. So anyway, one of the widows goes into the taskmaster and she implants some kind of chip in the back of her neck. And I guess this is the chip that's going to give the taskmaster their mission so that they can go find Yelena or the vials, whichever one they're after. But so while we're talking about it, and we probably will go a little bit more out of order in this, but I know that there are some feelings about the whole taskmaster thing. Michael has his hand up. So let's go ahead and get that out the way, because that's a reveal that comes later on in the movie, but
This
We've got
a
to talk about it now.
reveal.
this is one of the main problems that a lot of people, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a house divided right now because originally Taskmaster, who in the comics is like one of the most badass motherfuckers out there. Like he's one of the best fighters in Marvel comics, like the best fighter. So basically, Taskmaster was as a male, and he is Tony Masters, and that's who he has been since his character was created. So in this movie, they decide to make Taskmaster Jenna Dracov's daughter, which, I mean, this is kind of nothing new because people change characters and who they are, and they've done that in the MCU before, which is, I mean, it's to be expected. But this is one of the main kind of a point of contention that I had with it, because I was like, why would you change something? Like, I mean, if you're gonna have Taskmaster in there, have Tony Masters in there. But the way they did it kind of helped tie the story together. Like they introduced the fact that the blood on Natasha's ledger was her killing his daughter. And you know the rules of the movies is like that you never introduce small things without them having a bigger meaning later on.
Right.
And this had a huge meaning later on.
Yeah.
So I mean that seems to be the only reason that they did it. But I mean, it's not even a gender flip like Carl Morgenthau in Captain America and Winter Soldier. That was just a gender flip. This is an entire identity switch.
Now,
like, this is an entirely different person.
From what I read, Taskmaster has nothing to do with the Black Widow story, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So they pulled him from a whole different character's arc.
Punisher character.
Threw it into Black Widow.
I mean, I think they basically brought him in because he looked cool. I mean, I think, as far as me being the Occam's razor man that I am, they needed somebody who could handle Black Widow and give her a challenge, and Taskmaster can. But it's weird that they put this specific character in there.
I thought they did it because they wanted to give us Avengers without actually giving us Avengers. We got to see Cap Shield, we got to see Black Panther's claws, we got to see Hawkeye with his arrow through one character. So Mike said it all. Mike took all the words I had to say. They just, it was not, I don't have a problem with gender switching, but I have said this before about the TV shows. I don't like it when Marvel jerks us around, and I feel like we kind of got jerked around by the character, not because why make her look like a man? I mean, the dude has an army of women assassins.
And when Taskmaster walked, she walked
like
heavy.
A man.
Walked like
a man.
Like
so
heavy.
It could have been a woman with the mask on. So I mean, I'm not going to get into the whole thing about how armor is on women and armor on men, but it clearly was a male stuntman in that armor suit. Period. Not a female stunt person, a male stunt person. And the material and all the stuff they showed us made it look like a man. And then you're like, oh, ta-da, it's a woman. And it's Dracov's daughter. Don't jerk me around like that. I didn't like it one bit. I really didn't. You might as well had her be a totally different character and not, like Mike said, the Taskmaster,
Okay, what they could have done very easily, and it would have actually have worked, instead of using Taskmaster, what they could have done is they could have pulled in Bartok again, or they could have, hear me out, they could have contracted outside help and got, wait for it, Bushmaster as an assassin / soldier, and they could have put him in there and it would have fit a little bit better, because Taskmaster, totally different. Bushmaster is more known for taking jobs on the side and could have stuck in there. My other problem is that you missed an opportunity to have the Red Guardian have a better fight with Taskmaster, because the movie kind of spiraled because it became a Tower Infernal. Let's go and get ourselves safe, when you missed serious opportunities to have a really badass fight with Taskmaster. And I agree, they used her very badly. They shouldn't have done it. They could have picked any number
Anybody.
of they have several.
The
Russian
Marvel
that
universe
they
is vast. They could have
anybody.
literally
They
flipped through the book and picked anybody. They could have had Kingpin in there for all we care. I mean,
anybody.
But it's like, I mean, but my other problem with it is, if they're going to go ahead and do that, I feel like they could have done a better job of giving her more screen time. And it's like, I mean, because the way she was in it, it's like you see her fighting Natasha on the bridge, then you see her driving a freaking tank, and then you see her in the upper room, red room, and like the reveal, and she was kind of like an afterthought. I mean, if she's she's basically a glorified henchman, and Taskmaster deserves way better than that, because he's a freaking badass.
Totally.
In comics, he's a badass. So he deserves way better.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, they should have just gone back to the draw. Like I said, they could have pulled any of the Russian villain superheroes.
They could have got Whiplash back. They could have just brought Whiplash back.
There you go. That actually would have worked better. That would have worked perfect, in fact.
I mean, what's the name? Scott get Hammer to make another fleet of freaking Black Widow robots and shit. I mean, there's a number of things they could have done better.
Yeah, they could, because they, like I said, they could have, if they were going to play in the Russian house, they could have pulled, what is it, Squadron Supreme, if I probably got the name wrong, the Russian group. They could have pulled someone they could have pulled the female Russian one. I forget her name, but they could have pulled her and made her a special widow, and it would have worked fine. But they did not need to have.
If they really wanted to, Taskmaster pulled out Omega Red shit.
We didn't. You're right. We didn't really need.
There you go.
Because the Taskmaster didn't really have a lot to do during the movie. Like, it could have been any widow assigned to try to take her down. Number one, so it wasn't like a huge. She wasn't that huge of a villain or a foil for Black Widow to begin with. I understand the writers trying to give us an emotional connection, like something to pull on our heartstrings and give Natasha some emotional gravity. But we already had that. She was already living with the knowledge that she had killed this man's daughter. And apparently it was for nothing because he's still alive. That was a lot of emotional weight right there. You didn't have to compound it by doing this elaborate, well, I call it elaborate. It wasn't really elaborate. But you're doing this whole bait and switch with the Taskmaster is Antonia. It was a miss with me, and I didn't particularly care for it or like it. And I think it actually took away from the movie because they could have focused their efforts on other things, like maybe making the widows more in the forefront than they were.
Or it's like if they really wanted to put Antonia in it, they could have just had Antonia in it. They could have had. I mean, if they're gonna, he was gonna robot. He could have just made her like called her a different type of spider or some shit. It's like they could have just had her as like a more enhanced Black Widow,
souped up,
instead of making her Taskmaster.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have worked better. Because now we're going to have a whole generation of kids who are going to thinking that that's Taskmaster. I'm like, no, that's.
And it's not even like you didn't even combine characters or create amalgamation of characters like Lady Loki, who is like the Enchantress and Lady Loki. You just kind of put them together. You didn't even do that. You just completely flipped the character completely.
Yeah, I'm not a fan at all.
One of the Avengers' top enemies in the comic books, because he literally does everything they do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's I agree with you 100%.
Well, I understand. I hear what you guys are saying, and I do understand that from a comic fan perspective. But as far as the story of Antonia and how important that was to Natasha's story, I do think that that was important, not only just for us to see where her character is and where her mindset is, but also I think over the last 10 years, we keep hearing about Budapest.
Right.
Her and Clint are always talking about that. Like that was the mission that kind of solidified their friendship. And fans have always wondered, like, so what the hell happened in Budapest? So we actually get the answer here. One of the things Natasha has said in the past when she's talking about how she got into the Avengers and how she got into S.H.I.E.L.D., she says that she got on S.H.I.E.L.D.'s radar in a bad way. And she had to do something to prove her loyalty. So this is what she had to do. She was trying to find a way to get out of the Red Room. She was trying to sever her ties with that organization. And apparently she's the only widow that they've had who has actually gotten out. That's a big thing. So not only did she get out, but her task from S.H.I.E.L.D. was she had to kill him. Like she said, that was the last thing that she needed to do in order to fully go over to S.H.I.E.L.D. She used Dreykov's daughter, I guess you can kind of say, as bait, because she figured, okay, wherever this daughter is going, he's bound to be there. So if he's there, we can go ahead and kill him. Now, we never knew what happened with Dreykov's daughter until this film. We didn't even know what the story was. We only know it because Loki referenced it when she questioned him in Avengers. That was one of the first things he mentioned about her when she was going back and forth with him, trying to figure out what his purpose was there. So she follows Dreykov's daughter, the little girl, Antonia. She's a school kid at this time, probably couldn't have been no more than Yelena was at the time that they had their mission in Ohio. We see her, she's got on her school uniform, she's got on a backpack, she's got on the little cute little socks and the little Jack and Jill shoes. She goes up the stairs and Natasha is giving instructions to Clint on comms, and she tells him that they're clear. And when she says that, the whole building blows up. And so this is part of the red in her ledger. Like she killed a little girl in pursuit of the higher goal, which was to kill Dreykov. That was the only way that she felt like she would be able to leave the Red Room. That was her escape. That was her freedom. And it came at a cost. And for her, that little girl was collateral damage. Like that's the price I had to pay in order to be free, which I hate to say it. I understand her way of thinking in that, like, if this is the only way you can get rid of a man who has literally stolen you from your family, trained you as this spy, used you for killings and whatever else they've used them for, if she felt that desperate enough that that's what she had to do to escape that life, I get it. But you know, she felt guilty about it. And that's one of the things I think we see about Natasha's character. Yes, Natasha is very good at being a spy. She is very good at killing people. However, that's not what she ever wanted for her life. And that's not what she aspires to. And I think that's one of the reasons why she joined the Avengers. And she said so to Yelena too. I was trying to do some good to make up for all the bad that I've done. So we needed that story. And it just happened to be, you know, that was the thing that kind of held heavy for her. Like, you know, we always talk about redemption stories with characters, and I feel like with her carrying that weight, Natasha probably would never have thought herself to be a hero. One of the lines that has been like heavily controversial in the MCU is when Natasha was talking to Bruce and she tells him about the procedure that the Red Room does on all of the widows, the graduation ceremony where they basically give them hysterectomy so that they can't have children, so that those children cannot compromise whatever it is they do. I'm going to say I have a feeling part of that may have had to do with her background, because we see when Alexei and Melina came back to Cuba and the girls had to be given up, you could tell that the girls had formed a bond with those two. And Dreykov saw that as well. And I think in his mind, he was like, okay, this might be something that will hinder them from doing their jobs properly. So let me go ahead and take that away. I don't know if that's exactly what he did, but I mean, if you think about it, not too long after this whole thing, what does Alexei say he does? He puts Alexei in prison for the rest of his life. Alexei was one of his most loyal soldiers. Why would you do that unless you felt like he compromised himself and your mission by feeling something for these little girls? Same with Melina, you know? But I think with her as well, like I said, she wouldn't have felt like she was a hero carrying that kind of guilt. And I think even though we know her character doesn't make it, past Endgame, she actually dies and everything. I think that was, I kind of feel like it was one of those things where that reveal needed to be made in this movie. Her finding out that Antonia didn't actually die, and then her saving Antonia and freeing her from the control that Dreykov had over her with the mind control serum that he was using on his widows. I think that was probably like the last step she needed for herself in her redemption story to make her feel like she was a full hero. And I think that was probably one of the reasons why she was so willing to sacrifice herself in Endgame for Clint. You know, it's basically one of those things, you know what? I can do this now. I have a clear conscience. I'm a hero. This is what I can do to help everyone else. I just feel like that was an important thing for her. And it may not have come off the way everybody wanted, especially with the way that they brought this character in and turned her into the Taskmaster as opposed to who the Taskmaster really was. But I do think that it was important for her character development and for her. It was a way for her to forgive herself for what she did. You know, she did it in order to be free, but that was a heavy price to pay for your freedom. And to find out that, you know, it doesn't completely absolve her, because yes, you did try to kill a child to achieve your goal, but it does, I think, at least alleviate some of that guilt for her.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. This is a whole redemption story for her, and I get that. I mean, it's just that I just wish they would have gone about using, I mean, they could have had Antonia, like I said, as an enhanced widow. They're supposed to taking a character and completely changing it. And especially a character that a lot of people know, and that is a pretty beloved character in the MCU. Like, it's a very, very well respected character. But I actually agree with you that Antonia was key. Fighting her and saving her was key in Natasha's redemption. I totally agree with you on that. And she did need that in order to go on to Infinity War and going forward from there. I do think she did need that. And, I agree with that.
But the other thing too is, I think with that backstory, that's one of the reasons why I feel like Black Widow should have gotten more than one movie, because they could have fleshed that story out a little bit more, given it a little bit more substance. And I think it probably would have done the character a little more justice if they.
I think the problem with the movie having a sequel is that at the time that the movie came out, before pre-COVID, they weren't really going to give her her movie. And it's my recollection is that they kind of really had to force them to give us a Black Widow movie, because they just, even though she's an Avenger and she's an original member, she was sort of just the girl on the team. And if memory serves me correctly, they really had to fight just to get this movie made to begin with. So I'm thinking that they made all the agreements and everything. They filmed the movie. And then life hit, COVID hit. They went and they filmed the end credit scene. And that's the end of it, because I think that because the character is dead, they want to move on to the next phase. They want to have her sister be Black Widow. And basically Disney is over and done with it. And I think that that's a shame. But I also think that you could easily back that out and give us a movie, say, within the 5 years that everyone went missing before they got Thanos and all this other stuff. You know, they could slide another movie in and it would actually fit. In fact, it would make more sense with her character. But I think that because of politics, that's what we got, and they did a disservice with that end credit scene.
Yeah, I think I don't even remember at this point what the issue was with getting the Black Widow movie made, because I know it's been kind of going back and forth for years. And I think part of that, again, I think is a little bit disrespectful to the character, because I know when they brought her in, when we first saw her in Iron Man 2, they brought her in and her character was supposed to be this femme fatale. You know, she's supposed to be the sexy character. She's supposed to be the one she's like all these stereotypically female traits that we just don't want to see in movies anymore. Like, we don't want to see the female character and she's only supposed to be there as eye candy or as the person who is the distraction, that sort of thing. And I think as the movies went on, we got to see a little bit more of her character fleshed out, and she became an actual, like, she became a great character, but we didn't really get to see a lot of her development. We just saw her as she relates to the guys. You know what I'm saying? We didn't really get to see enough of her on her own. Like, who is she? What made her this person? What made her decide to come to S.H.I.E.L.D.? I think we get a little bit of that in this film. I don't think we get enough of it. And like I said, I think that's a real disservice to the character. And I think it's also a disservice to Scarlett Johansson, because she has done a lot to bring this character to life. And she, you know, reading some of the interviews, she has been instrumental in making a lot of the changes to the Black Widow's character and to Natasha's character, taking her out of that stereotypically female role and making her an equal with the guys. She deserves to have a fully fleshed Black Widow movie or movies, and the fact that she's not going to get them is one of the biggest disappointments that I have regarding this movie, because I feel like there's so much more that they could have done with her character. And then let's not even talk about the fact that her character dies in Endgame, and then we get that really awesome girl power scene at the end when they're doing the battle and she's not there. That pissed me off so much. When I saw Endgame, it was one of the only complaints I had about that movie. But I'm like, how do you have all of these powerful women from the MCU joining together to fight this battle, and Black Widow is not there?
I'm going to argue something. Pepper Potts did not deserve to be in that scene. Okay, she did jack shit. And I'm talking about as far as hero, she did not deserve a role carrying the ball. I'm sorry. That irritated me.
I mean,
and I will not take that back.
I mean, you don't want her there like in her business suit, like holding files. It's like she can't do nothing.
Exactly. What has she ever done?
Well, you know, they had to figure out a way to have her there for his death.
I know, but still, it took me out of it. Okay, it just took me out of it. I'm like, really?
I mean,
okay,
I have to say it, I agree, and I don't have anything against Pepper Potts' character.
Neither do I.
But I feel like for that moment, that should have been Natasha.
Natasha, right? Yeah. But I will say this: the movie is very interesting on one level, because you can see there was a lot of callbacks to certain lines and certain things that they've had throughout the years as her being Black Widow. But David Harbour as her dad, by the way, her parents are awesome.
David Harbour was goodish.
I
really
love her
fucking
parents.
Good in this movie. Like between him and Florence Pugh, it's like those two were just like, I was like, yeah, that was dope.
But if you look at the prison breakout scene, by the way, which was one of the best scenes in the movie, the way he's running, the way he's fighting his way out of the jail, that's her dad. That's how she learned to do all that stuff. It's him. I mean, it's literally, if you could put side by side her doing a running sequence, him doing a running sequence, it's the same pattern. I mean, it's just all the way from the sliding to the throwing the thing, the wedging in the door. Literally, that's her dad. Like I said, the biggest surprise is how much I enjoyed her parents.
Yeah,
I love that.
Even though dysfunctional is not quite, I mean, dysfunctional, I think, is an understatement for what they are. But
since Lori brought up the prison scene, I love that moment where the big guy, the big prisoner, says, Wait, what year did you say?
Called him out.
was
83 or 84. Captain America was still in the high
Awesome. David Harbour from Stranger Things. Oh my God, he was perfect.
He was. No, him trying to get into
Yes.
that dance.
Oh my God. It still fits.
dude,
I was sitting there just rolling. And she goes, I never watched it once.
Ew.
And I'm going, ew.
Yeah, nah.
But
Take it.
He needed some Crisco.
He needs
lard, Crisco, the whole thing.
He need to grease up.
I think you actually did lard. I don't think Crisco is a name brand. You need an off brand to get that on.
Right.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about the family, so let me say this. I think the best things about this film has to do with Yelena's character. And also, I think how she is the one who kind of brings these three people who she considers family, how she brings them around and changes their way of thinking. Because as we learn throughout the movie, like we said, the parents, Alexei and Melina, they were completing a mission. They were on assignment. They were thrown together to pretend like they were married and that they were the parents of these two girls. Natasha, as an older child, knew that they were on a mission and knew that they were just pretending, but she played her role well because that's what she was trained to do. Yelena, on the other hand, was only 6 years old, which means that at the start of all this, she would have been maybe still 2, just turning 3. She has no recollection of anything other than that they are her family. And she holds on to this belief up until she and Natasha are in the store. And Natasha says, well, we weren't really family anyway. And you can kind of see that shakes Yelena. Because again, in her mind, this is her sister. Those are her parents. And to hear them at different times talk about how it was a mission, or when Alexei says, I was stuck in this undercover role. I was bored. This is, I didn't want to be there. And then he looks at her, he's like, no offense. She's looking at him like, oh my God, what the fuck? And then when they're in Melina's dining room and they're talking, Natasha says it wasn't real anyway, so it doesn't matter. And that's when she breaks down. She was like, don't say that. It was real to me. You are my mother. You are the only mother I have ever known. And she says, this was the best part of my life. And you guys tell me it was fake and no one bothered to tell me. She probably thought for most of her life, up until she started doing her training with the Red Room, that really was her family. And she was just separated from them. She always looked at them as family. She even tells Alexis, she says, you looked at this as a mission, but for me, you were everything to me. She idolized him as her dad, just like most little girls do. And to see her deal with that heartbreak of realizing that, as far as she knows, she's the only person who felt like that was her family. That was heartbreaking to watch. And then to see, like, you could see Natasha struggling, because she also wants to say, like, when they're fighting each other, when they first meet each other in the Budapest house, they're almost choking each other to death. And there's a moment where Natasha looks at Yelena and you can see the change in her face. She's like, oh my God, this is my little sister. And she stops. She calls a truce. And there are moments throughout the movie where it seems like she's still trying to keep her distance, but you start to see that she's falling back into big sister mode. This is my little sister. I need to protect her. And then finally at the end, she tells her, look, please forgive me. I should have come back for you. It was real for me. Like, you are my sister. But to know that Yelena's character is the one who started, I think, all of that. And then as she gets more connected to the others, like Alexei admits several times in the movie, even though the girls never heard it, he admits, hey, I was a coward. I loved you girls. Letting them take you away from me on that airstrip in Cuba, that was the worst mistake I could have done. For him to actually be able to voice that, for Natasha and Melina to have that moment with the photo album where Natasha tells her, look, I know these photos were fake, but they mean a lot to me because I wanted it to be real. It's just seeing how all of them kind of connect on that level, and all of that starts with Yelena and her vulnerability.
Yeah,
she's supposed to be a widow. Right. She's supposed to be the like Alexis says, she was the best child assassin that they had. You know, her record is impeccable, but to see that she can be this person and still up under all of that mind control and whatever, she was still this vulnerable person who just wanted her family back. To me, that was the best thing in the film.
Yeah, I agree. It's like right at that moment when Natasha said that it wasn't real, it's like you could see like it's really good acting on Florence Pugh's part. Like she actually regressed to that 6-year-old. Like, and she was like, stop, like you could hear it in her voice, like, stop, it's real to me. Like it's like they might as well have just told her that Santa Claus wasn't real for the first time. It's like, yeah, she really like I mean, the level of like disappointment and disillusionment that she had was really evident in the way that she focused in on it. Plus, I mean, you know, off top, but that whole fight scene when they first saw each other was so raw. Like, I literally thought they were hurting each other. Like, especially when she threw Natasha through that door and she hit her leg. I was like, her leg's broken. There's no way her leg's not broken.
Let me tell you. So one of the things Daryl sent me a message. He was like, so refresh my memory. Is Natasha supposed to be a super soldier? Because she was on some Fast and Furious shit in this movie. And I was like, now from what I understand, someone told me that she has been given the super soldier serum in the comics.
In the comics, yes.
Okay. So I think in the films, I want to just say, yes, she does take a lot and she deals with a lot, and we see she gets up and walks away. I want to say that is kind of sort of what their training is, you know, as far as these assassins. And we see this in other movies and other shows when we're dealing with spies. Spies are
she's basically like part of Jason Bourne. I mean, you're supposed to be able to get out of these situations.
Their conditioning is that they have to endure a lot of pain. They learn how to, I mean, they are basically the epitome of walk it off.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of two things. First, I like the fact that when they were at the farmhouse, that even though they were resisting, her parents went right back to being her parents. Right. I love that. Second, I think the thing that's interesting about her skill set is that the comics tend to do her and Elektra sort of the same, where it's nebulous, but then they define it and then they take it away. So at any given time, she's a super soldier, she's not. Elektra's this, or she's not, or she's dead. So they kind of interchange to fit the storyline. But as far as her powers are concerned, I think that she was given the serum. She does have powers, but I don't think that she is as souped up as Cap or Red Guardian. I think it affected her a little bit more different. I think it gave her more of a fighting ability than anything else.
Are you talking about in the MCU?
Yeah. I haven't read a whole lot. I do know about that, but maybe am I wrong?
No, she didn't have any. They didn't give her anything.
That's what I thought. I mean, because I'm sitting there and I'm going, well, I know because like Elektra, they play fast and loose, but I'm sitting there going, well, when did she get the super serum? Because I'm trying to think back when she got it.
In the comic book, in the comics they have retconned her several times.
Right, like Elektra.
You brought up Elektra.
Yeah.
Same, because like Elektra, she had been trained by the hand. So she has even more training than what your regular Black Widows have. But you know, they tried to explain her not aging by saying that she had been given a version of the super soldier serum. And they said the same thing about Nick Fury. I mean, they throw it a lot. They, depending on the writer and the editor, that's what happens in the comic books. They will add stuff, take stuff away, change. We've talked about this before. It's whatever's convenient for the writer.
Yeah, well, see, the Nick Fury
as far as the MCU goes,
Nick Fury is confirmed because I got a whole stack of Howling Commandos in my bedroom right now.
I know. I just said his name. I just threw him out there because we were talking about it. But as far as the MCU goes, no, they've never implied that she was ever given anything, her or Clint, because you would think Clint was a superhero has superpowers, so he never misses.
Right.
But no, he just has really, really above average hand-eye
And he
coordination.
probably, even
because
before
if
that,
you
he
put
probably
those
just practiced a hell of a lot.
Yeah, because like,
well, he was in the circus though.
They've always say he's like above. He's like a little bit above the Olympic archers,
Right?
Because those guys are. If you ever watch archery,
yes,
those guys are incredible.
Or the gun, or the rifle, the shooting stuff. Yeah.
Yes, and like even the ones who do where they ski.
Yeah, trap shoot. Yeah.
They
biathlon.
Right.
Yes,
yeah,
there you
they
go.
are incredible. So it's not hard to imagine that he would never really miss, because he's just been trained that way. His hand-eye coordination is superb.
Well, he got that from his brother.
Same thing with Natasha. Natasha is a little bit. She's like the best of the Black Widow. She's above even them. Like, considering all the training that they have, it's just that something about her hand-eye coordination is a little better. Her pain tolerance is a little higher. Maybe she picks up skills a little bit quicker than the others, but she's on that scale. But no, they've never really, unless they come out and say it or do it, they've never, 'cause even in the comic book, she was trained by the Winter Soldier. She was married to the Red Guardian in comic books. So they change that stuff when they go.
She got turned.
Just like they changed Taskmaster.
Right, and she got changed into a vampire at one point, but then by Dracula. But they backed that out too. Dracula turned her, but she turned back.
Okay.
We said she went through several iterations. Okay,
we won't even go there. I have questions, but
won't go there. But long story short, no, she has not been, as far as we know, in the MCU, she's not been subject to.
So she just has really good endurance, because when I tell you, as many times as she's been slammed and hit, and like the worst she suffered in this movie was not even a dislocated shoulder. She broke her nose, and she had I think she had a knife in her shoulder that Yelena pulled out towards the end. But other than that, she was dangling from buildings. She was flying through the air, fighting through the air. She slammed down onto the ground at fast speed.
We were talking about Fast and Furious. There are a couple of moments in the original Avengers movie, where either her arms should have been ripped off.
Right.
Yeah. Every bone in her body should have been
100%.
shattered.
Right.
Yeah. That's
why I was wondering, it's like, I know that she has been through this rigorous training, and the way that Dreykov describes his widows and what he puts them through, I can imagine she's probably been through the paces to where they've probably broken her body and repaired her body so many times. She probably does have a high tolerance for pain. She probably can just be thrown off of stuff and then just get back up. That's probably a part of her training. But it's just it's a little bit suspect.
Well, that's what makes her a superhero. That's what makes her and Clint different from everybody else. I couldn't imagine Scott Lang getting up and shaking stuff.
Oh no, Scott couldn't do that at all.
Yeah, but I think
so but Janet would. I could see Janet getting up and walking some of that stuff off.
Yeah. But see, the thing is that when they do this in these movies, it's more for the non-comic book people's enjoyment, because then they'd have to explain a little bit too much, again, to a little bit too much detail, and everyone else's eyes would glaze over. But yeah, and I forgot about the whole Red Guardian thing.
Yeah, which is again why we need another Black Widow movie. But anyway, I will say this too: seeing the moments where Yelena and Natasha are coming together and they're bonding and they're kind of figuring out who they are as grown-ups, as Natasha says, because again, they haven't seen each other since they were torn apart in Cuba 21 years prior. So they're learning who they are as adults and some of the things that they've gone through. And I think it also adds to Natasha's guilt in a way, because when Yelena is explaining to her about what this toxin does that Dreykov uses to control all of his widows, she makes it a point to say yours was psychological conditioning, ours was chemical. She said you were the one that got away. He wasn't about to let that happen again. So it was basically a direct result of Natasha breaking free from the Red Room that Dreykov was like, okay, I need another way to control these girls so that they don't escape. And he creates this mind control serum, and he has all of these girls all around the globe. And not only girls, but he has, like we said, he has political leaders. He has people in, government officials. He has people in very high places that are on this serum. And that's all because Natasha had the audacity to leave and reclaim her life. That's got to be a lot of guilt for Natasha to have as well. And then not only that, later on in the episode, when they are having the family dinner and Melina is talking, like she's talking very proudly about what she has helped Dreykov accomplish as far as being able to control people and take away free will. And then Yelena looks at her and says, yeah, you know who they tested all of that on? And you know who fell under that mind control? Me. And Melina's looking like, oh shit. And again, that's another one of those things where Yelena and what she has gone through and how she has suffered because of all of this is kind of what makes her family say, okay, you know what? We're not going to do this anymore. I think for Melina, both of the girls and what they're doing and how they've coped and what they've gone through, I think that was a lot of her reason as far as turning on Dreykov and kind of throwing in with them, because one, when they got ready to leave Ohio, she didn't want to leave. And she told Alexei that she was like, I don't want to go, because that would mean that they would go back to their regular lives. They wouldn't be parents to the girls anymore. The girls would be split. And we see that she is nostalgic about it because she kept the photo album that she told Natasha to leave behind. She actually kept it. And then she realizes, like, I mean, they're all looking at Natasha like she's a force to be reckoned with. Like, how did you escape? How did you still keep your heart? Like, how did you go from being this killer, this trained killer, to being a superhero? What was it that Yelena said? She says, we're both still trained killers, only I'm not the one that's on magazine covers. I'm not the killer that little girls want to be. I was like, ouch.
But Kim coming for her in that movie, so much shade.
For real.
She did, but I loved it. I like I said, I love the banter between them, but her attitude and her humor, whether it was actually funny or whether it was just dry humor, she's like, when they got ready, when the avalanche was coming, she was like, yeah, this will be a cool way to die. And then, the helicopter, I don't think we're going to make it to St. Petersburg. And Alexia's like, we'll make it. She's like, okay.
Plane comes falling down.
It's like straight down.
The helicopter comes falling down. Her humor in this movie was so funny. And then the way everybody else kind of played into it was just, it was
it's
great.
It's like her, the way she's saying, like, this would be a good way to die. It's kind of like a callback to American Pie being her favorite song, because it's like in the chorus, like, this will be the day that I die. Like, like saying, this is how it's going to happen. So even when they were in the Red Room and they were like sketching how to give her a lobotomy, she was like, this is not a good way to die.
right. But and her jokes about Natasha's posing, she was like, why do you do that pose like that?
And then she did it in the upper room, and she was like,
oh, disgusting.
That joke was perfect. It's like when she did, when they were breaking her father out, and she did it like on the bridge, she was like,
such a poser.
Like when she was flying the copter, I was like, that's one of the best running jokes in the MCU. That was freaking awesome.
So hold on. Okay, so going back to when Natasha first went off the grid, let's talk about this friend that she has that can find just all kinds of shit for her. I need to know more about him.
I thought that was the dude from S.H.I.E.L.D., the British guy at first, because he kind of looks like him, but it wasn't.
Luke.
No, not Luke. The one that was with Mockingbird.
Huh?
Mockingbird's husband. What's his name?
Hunter?
Yeah.
I know you're talking about.
Yeah, but it kind of looked almost a little bit alike. So, but
no, he plays Luke in Handmaid's Tale.
I don't watch anime.
Oh, okay, okay. But
I
yeah,
don't like watching women oppressed.
I need to know more about this character and who he is and how he can just find like helicopters and Quinjets and just all kinds of stuff. Cause I need a friend like that.
Okay.
Right.
Like, but I also felt like I felt some vibes between them. Like the way she was looking at him, it was kind of like one of those.
Yeah.
Boy, if I wasn't
Oh,
an
yeah, something
international
definitely
super
went
spy
on.
who was always on the run for my life.
Especially when she walked in the mobile home and saw him laying down. She was kind of like,
Right.
nah, you better get up.
Right. Get out my
Yeah,
bed.
there was some flirting. There was some flirting there. But I need to know more about his character and if we're gonna see him anymore. Because what is it that Red says in Shawshank Redemption? I'm the man who can get things.
So interesting note about Rick. Rick Mason is his name.
Mhm.
He is the son of Phineas Mason, who is the Tinkerer. We have seen him already.
We've seen the Tinkerer already, or we've seen
Yes.
okay.
We've seen the Tinkerer. He was in Spider-Man. He was with
Oh, that's a good
he was
catch.
the one-
That's
he
a
was
good
Yeah,
one.
he was with Vulture.
Yeah, he was with the Vulture. He was designing all the
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So now I need to go back and watch.
Yeah, I know, right, Lori? Like, okay, y'all are gonna make me go back and watch. Okay.
weapons. Yes. That in the comic books.
That was a great
In the comic
Spider-Man.
books,
Right?
that is his father.
Hmm.
He was a Shield agent. He was a former Shield agent, but yeah, whatever.
Wasn't everybody a former Shield agent? So they
Everyone's a former Shield. Who else will be able to get their hands on the Quinjet?
Right. Like, where do you just come up with that? Unless that was one of those things where Nick Fury was like, "Oh, you helping my girl Natasha? All right, I give this to you on loan."
I'm sure he knew somebody. He probably knew someone who owed him a favor from when he was a Shield agent. You know, he probably called in some favors, spent a little money. Yeah, he knew how to fly it. He got it there.
true. That's a good point.
Right.
Right. That's true.
But yeah, the Tinkerer. If they're going to be pulling this stuff together, that the Tinkerer is his dad. Yeah, that was interesting. I caught that, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool."
Okay. So yeah, so let's talk about the other, I guess you could say the other part of this redemptive arc, if we want to call it that, for Natasha. So the main premise of this movie becomes the fact that not just that she's on the run because of what's going on with the Avengers, but when she comes into contact with Yelena, and Yelena is kind of throwing shade at her about being a superhero, or you can get your superhero friends to help you with this, blah, 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 blah. She was like, yeah, I was fully expecting for Captain America to come in and bring down the Red Room. And Natasha stops and she's like, what do you mean? The Red Room was destroyed years ago because she thought she killed Dreykov. So she finds out that Dreykov is not only alive, he's still creating widows, and he's using, whatever serum he has to mind control them. And this becomes like the driving force for Natasha through this movie, because she's like, okay, this is on me. If I had made sure that he was dead the first time I tried to kill him, then all of these other girls wouldn't have been captured, wouldn't have fallen into this same trap that I had to grow up with. So that becomes the main driving force for her through this movie. And let me say, that Dreykov character, he is a piece of work.
Yeah, you can't make me believe that he wasn't like a true piece of crap and touch those girls. You can't make me believe he didn't.
Oh no, I thought about that too, because I'm like, they never imply that. Like, the only thing we've ever heard is that these girls have been trained assassins. But if you think about it, one of the key elements, like I said earlier, of Natasha's character is that she has to be flirty and seductive. And that's, if you think about a lot of like spy films or whatever, when it comes to women and sometimes even men, one of the things that they have to do in order to get the job done is they have to seduce their mark, or they have to become the girlfriend, they have to become the wife, they have to become the lover. And that's part of how they get access to whatever it is they're supposed to be getting access to. And these are all young girls. how do you think they're going to learn that? They probably were trained in that too. And that thought is so sickening, but that had to have happened. And then the way that he talks, like when he talks about Natasha, he was like, I gave her a home. I gave her love. Like, I don't even want to know how you equate love, considering what you do to all these other girls. Like, mind control is not love. Teaching them how to kill and how to infiltrate governments and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
That's not love. So what are you thinking of? Ew.
Right.
But that probably had to be a part of their training too. So that joke is a piece of work. And the fact, okay, so someone please explain to me, how do you implement a pheromone lock? Because this is what he says he's done. He has implemented a pheromone lock so that any of his widows that come near him and they smell his scent, they are physically prevented from harming him or being able to harm him.
That reminded me of Demolition Man, where what's his name couldn't hit the mayor. Or the guy, he said that he needed him to kill Dennis Leary's character, but he couldn't physically kill the mayor. Like, he's like, don't you have something going through your head? Like, he was like mentally trained and told that if you come in contact with this person, you can't kill them. It's like, I mean, it's the whole thing with, it's the same thing with Natasha. She probably she had no idea that that's what she did. It's like, she was like, I'm going to kill you. He's like, nah, no, you're not. And it's really kind of scary, the levels of mind control that he put all those girls through. Like, that's just like, there was another show I think that I
Blacklist.
There's another show I'm thinking of that where it's like someone tried to, you know what I was thinking of? Constantine, where Gabriel tried to hit Satan,
right.
And she was like, skirt, right before she punched him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's just crazy. It's a really scary level of mind control.
And as far as the technical details of that, I would say that it was probably something that he made a deal with Dr. Doom in Latveria, and Dr. Doom helped him out to tech on that because of the sensory thing. But as for general, that's just some deep mind control. And like I said, I briefly mentioned it, Blacklist, especially this current season, they really brought up this whole spy training thing, because they had an episode where they were showing what's her name's mother as a child being dominated by her father and having these trainings when she was like 9 years old, spying on shopkeepers and stuff. So it's a trope that they have. But I think for this, it was done very, very well. And I think that it gave the movie the extra oomph that it needed. But at the same time, I don't like seeing young girls. Again, I go back to Shadow and Bone, Romeo Pimp. You've got this guy who has manipulated these girls. He says, I'm going to overrun the world with the best commodity that we never run out of, girls. I mean,
my God, when I tell you,
he literally doesn't care.
That made my skin crawl. I was like, no.
Oh,
mine too. Yeah.
Well, back to the pheromones thing. I kind of zoned out for a second. Did anyone mention Kilgrave?
No, we didn't.
That's a good one.
That's a good one though. Yeah.
So since they're all in the same universe, even though they don't cross paths, I would assume he knows about Kilgrave. Mm-hmm. And he probably was like, just figure that shit out. You know, we've already got the mind control thing down. Let's figure this other thing out. Now, is he taking a treatment? You know, did he have his glands adjusted to secrete that specific pheromone type? You know, is he taking pills every morning? I mean, I would like to know how that works.
So you're saying it's sort of like the Purple Man Kilgrave thing that they did with Jessica Jones and David Tennant's character.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. That actually would make more sense. Yeah.
It's just
I mean, does pheromones smell like Drakkar Noir, or like?
All I'm saying is that David Tennant's character as the Purple Man and Jessica Jones still gives me the creeps.
I only watched like 1 or 2 episodes of Jessica Jones, and I don't even remember why I stopped. I think it was just scheduling at that point, and I just never went back to it. But I think the episode where they reveal him in it, and I was just like,
oh yeah.
I was just looking at the TV like, what the fuck is this?
What? Oh yeah, it gets worse.
I've heard. I do plan on going back and watching it, but
When I say he acted his little butt off like no one's business, but I could see actually that same technology being applied to them, because at first when she couldn't do it, especially when she says, thank you for your help, but when he goes and he sort of kind of goes to hit her and she kind of shies back like she's scared of him, I was going, okay, how much of that is acting? How much of that is actual, control? And I don't know. I went back and watched it a few times, and I want to say that 80% of that was the control, 20% of that was acting, because as we know, her mom had told her about that particular thing. So I'm curious, because I don't know. I think a lot of it was acting.
Well, I think part of it was, even though Melina had told her about it, I think it was acting in the sense of she had to make it seem like she was going after him to kind of put him in that mindset and to, I guess, kind of disarm him, because when she did that and she was unable to actually harm him, he got a little bit too arrogant and he started monologuing a little bit too much. He started giving, same thing she did with Loki. As she says, she does have a particular set of skills. And one of the things that she can do is she can get people to talk when they're not supposed to talk.
Right.
So he's telling her about this pheromone lock. Then she gets to the point where she starts provoking him to the point where he will hit her, because what she's trying to do is get him to break her nose so that she doesn't, what is it that she says? Break the
olfactory nerve.
Olfactory nerve.
Yes. She's trying to sever the nerve so that she won't smell it, so she can attack him. And unfortunately, like she says, he's just not strong enough, or he doesn't know how to hit her well enough, which is a weird thing to say, because his character seems like the type of person who likes to hit on women. But he just wasn't doing it the right way. And so she has to do it herself. But yeah, I think part of that was acting for her, but it was more so to kind of get him off his game, or to get him to lower his guard, because now he's being all, arrogant. Oh yeah, you think you can do this? Well, you can't touch me, and nobody can touch me because I have all these people all around the world, and I have all these girls, and they can do this. And he literally pulls out the desk drawer, he unlocks it, not even paying attention to the fact that she's watching him. This is somebody that you trained. You should know what her skills are. Why are you just, I just feel like,
it's the arrogance.
Yeah, it is.
Yes,
it is.
But they left a dangling thread, that ring. Because remember, he said, I need to go back, and he had left his ring behind. Right. I want to know what was in that ring, or what that ring was.
Well, she slipped
the ring was how she was able to unlock the how she was able to log into
I missed it then. Okay.
The ring.
She slipped. Of course, she slipped it off his finger, and he didn't realize it.
All right. Okay, I missed that.
Yeah, that was one of the things.
He thinks he's the smartest person in the room, and he
is definitely not.
No.
Right, like you trained her well. But yeah, so basically what he did was, when he was going on his little arrogant monologue, he pulled open the desk drawer, and there was that keyboard or that board, and then he took the ring and he moved it diagonally, and that's what brought up his login screen.
So that's when
okay. And so as he was trying to escape and get on the helicopter, he realized he didn't have the ring on his hand, and that she had. And of course, it was too late for him to do anything about it at that point, because she had already gone in. She copied the names. I guess it was like the names and locations of all of those girls onto a hard drive.
Yeah, saw that.
Which I would assume she probably gave that to either Yelena, or she probably gave that to Secretary Ross as part of her bargaining chip, because of course we see at the end of the movie 2 weeks later, she still hasn't been captured, even though Ross and his team were cornering her after everything happened and they brought the Red Room down. But I thought about this too, since we know that this happens in between Civil War and Infinity War. It makes a lot more sense now when Steve, Natasha, Vision, and Wanda walk into Avengers Tower with Rhodey, Ross's hologram walks up to them and he specifically turns to Natasha and says, "You have some nerve."
Right.
This takes place right. After all of that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, he's still a little perturbed at her because she got away from him. And then she turned around and brought down the Red Room without his help. And I mean, her bringing down that Red Room probably put her in that bargaining position where she said, "I did your job for you. Now you can leave me alone and let me go."
Yeah. But yeah.
Even though she was still kind of on the run for 2 years with all of them, at the end of this movie, she says that she's going to go help break her friends out of prison. So I'm going to assume at that point, she probably had been in contact with Steve, because other than that, how would she know where they are? Because she doesn't really know. She just knows Ross says that they have them. So I think he was probably just a little bit bitter, because that could have been his one thing, like, oh my God, I could catch Natasha Romanoff and that'll get everyone off my back. And then she's like, well, I brought the Red Room down, so I want my freedom, or I want you to leave me alone. I want you to let me go and don't pursue me. That's probably what happened. And he couldn't really do anything. I mean, you've got a field full of debris that you need to now clean up and explain what this is. Why was there a whole fortress in the sky? Why did we not know about it? Why did you, the government, not know about it? How did you not know about this dude who was kidnapping all these girls and using them as sleepers? I mean, Ross has a lot on his plate. So,
oh, poor baby.
I just thought about that when thinking about the fact that he surrounded her at the end, and I was like, oh, that's why he was so petulant when he said, "You have some nerve." And then if you think about her hair at the end of the movie, it was the hair that she had at the beginning of Infinity War, which I absolutely hate. That blonde
I agree with you, but they did preference it, because when she was in the trailer, you saw she had a thing of Clairol blonde hair dye in her hand.
Yeah.
So they reference it, and I think that with her is sort of like Chris Hemsworth, is that she got tired of dyeing her hair, and they made deals to get more of their regular real hair in the movies.
Yeah, so, and then of course I think she had wigs on for most of it.
Right?
So.
Yeah.
But again, that poor Ross, he just needs to leave that girl alone, because she's gonna embarrass you every time. Just when you think, oh, I'm closing in on her, I'm about to arrest her.
Make him have another heart attack. Chill the fuck out.
Chill out, like for real. But what else in this movie? Okay, so let's go back. We need to talk about Alexei, because Alexei is one of those characters. I don't know if it's because he's been in prison for the last 20 years or what. That dude does not know how to read the room. How can you not tell that these girls do not want to be bothered with you? They don't want your praise. The things that he claims he's so proud of them for, they're both disgusted, like, this is really all you want from us? And even when they crash near St. Petersburg and they get off the plane, he wants to talk to Natasha. Natasha, come here. I have something to ask you. It's important. Did he ever speak of me? I mean, when you were trading war stories, did you ever talk about me? Who?
That was
Captain America. She was like, you haven't seen us in 20 years and this is what you want to know about you? I was like, Alexei, you're so dumb.
I was more disturbed when he tells Melina that he's been in prison. He's got, and I quote, a lot of energy. I was so wrong.
Oh my God, they were. I mean, they were both like, "Oh yeah, I've been here with pigs." So yeah.
Natasha was like, "Please don't." She looked like she was about to cry.
And the fact that Melina really didn't look all that disgusted when he said that.
No, Melina was with it, because, like I said, she's been on a farm with pigs, trying to teach them like how to get through a damn maze. What makes you think she ain't seen not nan piece of a man?
And she named a pig after him.
I don't even want to get into the possible bestiality stuff, because I mean, she has been like messing with their minds. I mean, maybe she can get him to like oink.
I said it before. I'll just say their parents are absolutely adorable. That's all I'm going to say.
The animal farm.
They got issues.
Oh God.
Like when they're on the plane after they rescue him from the prison and Yelena bops him in the nose, he's like, why the aggression? Are you on your period? She was like, I don't get periods, you dipshit. That's what happens in the red room. They give you, when they give you a hysterectomy. She was like, they take your insides, they go in and they just rip them out. And just the way that she was saying it, and
I was squeamish, and I'm a girl. I'm like, I don't need to hear all that. I really don't need to hear all of that.
She went straight to the point.
Right?
Like, yeah.
It was like, no, this is what you signed us up for. You wanted us to go to the red room. Like Natasha specifically said, I don't want to go back there. You can't take her there. She's only 6. Like Natasha knew what was going to happen to them. And he's just like, what is it? That's the greatest honor for you to be up there, blah, blah, blah. Like, dude, do you not realize? And I'm gonna be honest, he probably didn't realize what they do to the girls there. He was probably, I mean, he's so full of himself, and he's so, all he wants to do is be the Red Guardian. Not what was it? Not the Crimson Dynamo, but the Red Guardian. All he wants to do is the Red Guardian, and he thinks that Dreykov is like the best leader ever and is going to bring a unified Russia, and then all this stuff starts happening. He probably really didn't understand the magnitude of what the Red Room does to those girls.
Right, because he's a very frustrated communist, and he says on the plane, he goes, I just want the party to be a real party. So he bought the whole thing, hook, line, and sinker. Mm-hmm. So when he gets put in jail for life, when the girls go off and they tell him that he's disillusioned because he is actually trying to be a good, what do they call them, comrade, so to speak. So, and yeah. Yeah,
and he says it at the dinner. He said, in my heart, I'm a good man.
Right.
Like he really thought he was doing something good for his country. And he thought by sending the girls to the Red Room that he was doing something good for them. And in his eyes, he succeeded. Like Natasha was this really successful spy for Russia, and then she joined the Avengers. He's like, oh my God, you are an Avenger. And then, like I said, with Yelena, he's like, you were the most accomplished child assassin ever produced. Like, those are the things that he's proud of. And he can't see the disgust on their faces. Like, this is not what we wanted. We just wanted a regular life. We just wanted to have a family and just live and be regular people. They didn't want this for their life, And he's so clueless when he tells Yelena the story about getting the frostbite and his father peeing on his hands to stave off the frostbite. Bruh. She was like, what the hell does this have to do with anything? He said, fathers, basically he was trying to say fathers may not do the best things, or they may not do or say the right things, but they have the best intentions. I think that's what he was trying to say. But of course, he doesn't know how to communicate with them, because in his mind, he says, all I ever did was love you girls. His version of love is not what they were looking for. Not in that sense. They wanted the dad that they had for 3 years in Ohio. They did not want this other person who he ended up really being. And he doesn't know how to communicate with them on that level. But I think he understands. Just like at the end when Natasha was like, you got something to say? He was like, I just messed it up. And he just grabbed her hand. I think that was probably the best thing that he could have done. Because the whole movie, he's just walking around with his foot in his mouth.
Basically.
Absolutely hysterical. I mean, it was so... David Harbour did such a good job. I can't hear
you on the earpiece, but I just want to say, she's like, you don't have an earpiece. How do you not know you've got your hand in your ear? How do you not know you don't have an earpiece? I was like, this dude is dumb.
It was so good. I mean, it just, he was perfect. That was perfect casting all the way down the line.
Yeah, that was pretty freaking awesome.
Oh, jeez.
So the okie doke that Melina and Natasha pulled when they switched faces and suits.
Another throwback.
Yeah, it was a good one, because I was sitting there when Melina and Natasha are having their talk, and Natasha is basically appealing to Melina. She's like, look, just because you were born in the cage doesn't mean you have to stay there. Because Melina tells her, she's like, look, I was cycled through the Red Room 4 times before you were even born. This is all I've known. So at first I wanted to be mad at her character because of what she did to the girls and the fact that she was still working for him. But when she said that, it's like in that one statement, you completely empathize with her character because this is all she's ever known. She doesn't know how to do anything else. And then this person who is in control of this red room has so much control over everyone. How could you even think of defying him? And even if you thought about it, I mean, if you look at Natasha's example, like she tried to kill him, she tried to blow him up, but it didn't succeed. And then because it didn't succeed, he implemented other things that exerted even more control over the other girls that were there. It's just kind of like one of those things where she probably just felt trapped. And I think when she saw Alexi and the girls pull up to her fence, she was probably apprehensive, but at the same time, she might have been a little bit hopeful, like, oh, there may be a way out for me yet. Right. But that little okie doke where she turned into Natasha and Natasha was her. When Natasha walked in, I thought something was weird about it, but I couldn't place my finger on it. But I was just like, she's not acting like Melina. She's acting a little bit weird. And then when Dreykov says, when you've raised a child as long as I have, you can tell when they're wearing a mask. I was like, oh, wait a minute. And then when he tried to touch her face and she automatically put her hand up, I was like, oh, wait, that's not Melina. That's got to be Natasha. But I thought that the way that they deal it was kind of brilliant. And then, of course, Melina gets Alexi out of the cell as he's making this heartfelt confession to Natasha, again, who is not there and can't hear it. And then, she, as Yelena is on the table about to get lobotomized or whatever it is they're about to do, Melina says, yeah, Yelena has the other earpiece. She's like, Yelena, it's me. It's mommy. You have a knife in your belt. I was like, oh, okay. So they just planned this whole stuff while Alexi was in there talking about getting his hands peed on by his dad. Like, this is what the older women were doing while he's in there trying to placate or, trying to.
What the adults were doing.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So let's talk about these widows.
First of all, can I just say, I know you're going to talk about it, but I just want to say how disappointed I am in that it literally took 20 of them to subdue Natasha. So
I was impressed because all that did was kind of reiterate for me that Natasha as a widow is one of a kind. Like, you can do all this to duplicate, you can do all the training or whatever. But whatever was in her genetic makeup that made them want to take her, which we find out in the film as well, her birth mother actually didn't abandon her. She was compensated for her child, but then she kept looking for her child and Dreykov ended up having her killed. But whatever is in her genetics that makes her amazing and able to like leap off of buildings and fly through the air and fight on broken pieces of whatever and not have broken bones. Yeah, that was pretty evident because those widows came in and she was like, look, I don't want to hurt y'all and y'all don't want to hurt me. They started fighting her. She's whop, whop, whop. They're on the ground. I said, wait a minute. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, wait, there's 2 at a time. 7. I mean, she was getting it. And I mean, they were throwing her up against the wall. They body slammed her on the desk. When they body slammed her on the desk, I knew her body was broken. I was so sure her back was broken. And she got up and she kept fighting. I was like, okay, yes, y'all need to give us another origin story because they had to have done something to her.
Oh yeah,
we just don't know about it.
Yeah.
No. Side note, I do want to point out the fact that one of the things that you don't do in a large group fight scene is have the other people linger around in the background. So at one point when she was fighting like 4 of them, there were like 5 or 6 of them just standing there.
They were waiting their turn.
Come on, choreographers. You got to get better. We got to do better.
I mean, it's just like...
I feel like I was watching a Star Wars movie again after they kill Snoke and you have the stunt people in the background fighting themselves. It's like, come on, guys. Let's not have them stand there and look like they need something to do.
Right.
At least have them...
That's also...
Well, yeah, whatever.
That's also any 80s action film, too. You know?
You got to do better.
When Jean-Claude stands up, And they all fight. They stood around watching until they decided it was their turn. You know this. You saw these movies.
I mean, it's just like a Bruce. It's just like Enter the Dragon, where all those guys were standing around, and they only attacked them one at a time. I mean, it's a trope.
In fact, I think in the season finale of Wu Assassins, I think they actually stood in line and waited for their turn, literally, when they were going through the gate.
I mean, it's kind of like they did that in Kill Bill too.
Exactly.
Yeah, with the 88
Japanese restaurant.
Crazy 88.
Yeah, the Crazy 88. It's like you say, Anthony. First of all, if you see that this one person is whooping everybody's ass that comes near her, and everybody is approaching her 1-on-1 or 2-on-1, and she's taking them down, that's when you all converge. Not that I wanted that to happen, because I wanted to see Black Widow kick some ass, and she was kicking some ass. But yeah, like you say, Anthony,
I'm just saying all those movies are but all those are valid. The criticism applies to all of them.
Right.
The same criticism. Why are they standing around like, and they weren't even like bouncing or dancing side to side. They're all just standing there. This is my turn. Come on, you gotta do better.
Right.
Yep, time. You got time to lean. You got time to lean into a punch.
I hear
something like that. I
hear Leroy Jenkins in the corner saying, "Y'all just line for your ass whipping. Just wait there for your ass whipping. It's coming. Just wait."
Leroy Jenkins.
Speaking of the fighting, going back to what Laura was saying, I do agree with you about the Red Guardian and Taskmaster fight.
Mm-hmm.
That should have been a better fight. We should have seen more of that fight.
Yes. And that would have been Red Guardian's opportunity to say, "I actually fought Captain America," because he was fighting the dude.
Right. Yes.
Right. But of course, instead he tries to turn behind. He tries to turn behind Melina just in case this is the last. And Melina is already gone to do what she's supposed to do. He's like, "Oh, damn it. Okay, let me fight."
She actually walked out the door.
As soon as she saw Taskmaster, she was like, "Deuces."
She was like, "Oh, you want something to beat? There you go."
Well, see, that would have been a perfect opportunity. Again, what they could have done, because they did the whole de-aging on him really well to begin the movie, they could have given us a quick 30, 40-second flashback or past or whatever of him in his prime as Red Guardian kicking some ass, and then they could have transitioned it into modern day with him fighting the guy, just to give us him in his glory days. I would have loved to have seen that.
Now here's my question, because I actually went and looked up the North Institute in Ohio just to see where it falls, because I was like, okay, so what's the big deal about the North Institute? So apparently that was one of the locations where Hydra was training their winter soldiers, including Bucky. So they went and destroyed it. So I'm like, okay, I know you said that you fought Captain America, which technically couldn't be true unless you were born way back in, unless you were Captain America's age, which clearly he is not. So I'm wondering if maybe he fought one of the other super soldiers and just told everybody.
He could have fought Isaiah Bradley.
Yep, that's true. He
could have fought Isaiah Bradley. That would fall within the timeline.
Okay.
Yeah. And he was a product of the same super soldier serum that they injected Bucky with. A variation of it. So
right.
Yeah, so we don't actually know exactly how old he is. I mean, he may appear to be a 45, 50-year-old man, but he could be 80.
Yeah, but he won't be a contemporary of Bucky and Steve's.
No, not a contemporary. No.
He would be more of a contemporary with Isaiah.
Yeah, because I was going to say there's no way he could have fought Captain America, or
if he fought the other Captain America.
I was going to say, we are dealing with other shows with variants and different timelines, so you never know. I mean,
I saw someone have that theory on YouTube. They were like,
"Oh, really?
It's possible that when Steve was, after he had went back and he was sort of in hiding, quote unquote, that he may have, had a mission or did something with Peggy that they would have crossed paths with him.
Oh,
There it is.
Yep.
That was
I mean,
not my theory. That was a theory that I read somewhere. I don't
Oh,
buy
okay.
it.
I mean, I just happened to just come up with it just like when I was
I
like,
mean,
there's no way he could have fought Captain America. Oh, wait a minute. There
Yeah, he
might.
could-
and if you want to take credit for that theory, it's fine. I won't say anything. It's cool.
No.
I'll give you all the theory credit that you
As a matter
desire.
of fact,
I
give
got
me a second. I will find who said that, and I'll give them the proper
Okay.
credit they're due.
you.
'Cause I'm not
Right.
claiming it.
So here's the other thing about fights. So at the end of the Red Guardian and Taskmaster fight, the way that the fight stopped is because Melina comes in and she does that classic Black Widow neck roll thing, and she flips Taskmaster into one of the cells and they close her in. I was like, okay, Melina, like, can we get a Melina Widow story somewhere?
It was a
Like,
little different, though. It was a little different. It wasn't.
it was a little different,
It was like her variation of it.
but it was still
It
awesome,
was still awesome.
and it was still Rachel Weisz doing it.
Actually,
So,
And yeah, and what's her name? The other one, she did it too, but
mhm,
she did another variation of the same thing.
mhm.
Why can't I
Well,
think of her
I think
name? Florence Pugh. She did.
Yelena.
Elaine, I think each class is taught a new and improved technique. So Melina's is probably the old school
Mhm.
version, So, but yeah, no, it was like I said, I was more impressed because like you said, she's 51 years old. I'm 49. I'm telling you, just doing basic exercise is hard. So I can't imagine doing a flip.
Right. Once they bring the Red Room, there's kind of like a reconciliation between all the characters. Like I said, Natasha finds Yelena and she tells her, please forgive me, little sister. I should have come to look for you. It was real for me, and that basically solidifies we are sisters no matter what. And I think the same happens with Alexia and Melina. They don't exchange the words, but just the simple hand grasp that Alexia does with Natasha and then also does with Yelena. I think that kind of solidifies them going back to considering themselves family. And even Natasha says so towards the end when she's going towards the Quinjet and she's talking to Rick. She says, I spent all these years thinking I didn't have a family. Turns out I have two. One is in shambles right now. I'm going to try to go see if I can fix that. And that's where she's talking about the Avengers. She's talking about going to break them out of prison and seeing if she can help mend those broken bridges. But at the end of the credits, there is a scene, and it's obviously several years later. We see an older Yelena with her dog, and they're going to it looks like a small makeshift cemetery, and there is a tree there, and that's kind of similar to the description that Dreykov gave to Natasha as far as where they buried her real mother. And it turns out she's at Natasha's grave, and it is just a simple headstone. It says Natasha Romanoff, daughter, sister, Avenger. And one of the things that I've seen people being upset about on Twitter, people were like, I wonder, do the Avengers even know where her grave is? Have they come to visit? No, the Avengers didn't even know she had a family because, in the scene in Endgame after she died, when the guys are by the lake, somebody asked, it was either Tony or it was Bruce who said, do we know if she had family? And then Cap says, we were her family. Somebody says, why don't they even know that she had a whole other family if this movie took place in between Civil War and Infinity War? Like, wouldn't she have gone back and said something? I don't think she would have, because one, by her very nature, Natasha is kind of secretive. She doesn't give out a lot of information about herself personally because she was a spy. Not only that, her first family were also spies. Her sister, one of the Red Room assassins. Her father, the Red Guardian, who, if y'all remember, Natasha and Yelena broke out of prison, so he is a fugitive. Melina was one of the architects of the Red Room. I don't think she would give out that information or even tell anybody that, okay, I found my original family. this is who they are. I don't think she would do that, not only because she doesn't share that kind of information, but also to protect, those people. Not only that, they were with the other widows trying to free the rest of the widows around the world. I think having them on anybody's radar, especially somebody like a Secretary Ross, that would kind of hinder that process. But not only that, I think if she would have told anybody, she probably would have told Clint.
Yeah, I was going to say Clint would be the only person she would have told.
Clint would be the only person that she probably told, and she probably didn't even give him all the details. She probably just said, yo, I reconnected with my family and we're good. That's probably it. If he does know the identity of her family, he probably wouldn't tell the rest of them out of respect for her, because if she didn't give that information, why would he, even if she's gone?
Yeah.
But also in the same vein, it's kind of like with Clint. Clint has a whole family that none of the Avengers knew about because he wanted it off of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s radar. We know Clint can keep a motherfucking secret.
Wait, did Natalie know? I said Natalie. Did Natasha know about? Natasha knew. So
because the little girl,
he would know about hers too.
Yeah, but I mean,
because she wanted the baby to be named after
not
her.
only that, but the little girl also said, "Did you bring Auntie Nat with you?"
Yeah.
So that, we know that mission in Budapest bonded them for life. Budapest. So yeah, I think if anybody knows, Clint would know, but of course he wouldn't say anything to anybody. But I think for me personally, it also explains to me why Natasha was more adamant about the fact that she be the one to sacrifice herself for the Soul Stone instead of Clint. Because with this movie falling where it does, like Natasha says, she knows that she now has two families. She doesn't feel incomplete in that sense anymore. Like, she has a family. She's reconnected with these people. She feels whole on that front. She knows what Clint has gone through because Clint's whole family, all three children and his wife, were part of the snap. And she knew that them going to get the stones, their goal was to try to bring everyone else back. Now, I don't know if her family was affected during the snap. We don't know if that affected any of them, but she sees what it did to Barton. I mean, Clint literally went on a killing spree. He killed all of the people who were doing bad things. Like, as punishment, he was like, yeah, innocent people were gone in the snap, but you're still here. So I'm going to eliminate you. I think in her mind, when they were fighting back and forth about who was going to give themselves up, I think she decided to do it because she was at peace. At this point, she had done everything that she needed to do for her family. She had forgiven herself for what she did to Drekhov's daughter. And I think she felt like, okay, I have my peace with my family. It's time for Clint to have that peace as well. I really think that's why she ultimately was the one who sacrificed herself. And this movie just kind of solidifies that for me, because it's kind of like, I've done everything that I needed to do. My journey is complete. Let me give him that same opportunity.
Yeah. I think, that makes sense, because I mean, with how she helped Taskmistress or whatever, she kind of cleaned that red off her ledger and kind of made up for it. Plus, she got a chance to see that her baby sister's doing fine, that she's okay, that her surrogate parents are okay, and she kind of made peace with all that. I mean, there really wasn't much left. I mean,
and I think also too, it's important to note that when she was able to free Antonia from the mind control serum, and she apologized to her, what did Antonia say? She wasn't worried about Natasha and what she did. Her question was, is he gone? She had been living under her father's control for so long. I think that probably affected her more than whatever it was that Natasha did. And if you've been living in that kind of controlled environment, and as his personal bodyguard, you see what he's doing to all of these other girls. I think in Antonia's mind, she probably forgave Natasha because she realizes that was probably the only way for Natasha to get out. And if one person was able to get out from that kind of control, it was probably worth whatever the price that had to be paid. But then not only that, now you just freed a whole bunch of other people too. So it's kind of like one of those things where I just feel like she had already forgiven Antonia, especially once she realized what happened. I mean, she was there in the room when Natasha was explaining it to Dreykov why she killed, or, you know, why she tried to kill the daughter. She's like, it was the only way I could get free.
And remember, Elena, I keep forgetting Florence Pugh's character's name. She had said that it's like you're not in control, but you are aware of what's going on. Mm-hmm. So she has always been aware of what was happening. She just wasn't in control.
Right. That's got to be horrible. Especially since, like you said, you can't control it. So this man is sending you out on missions where you have to kill other people. And he's doing that to his widows. Think about the one who fell when she was pursuing Natasha and Yelena. She fell from a roof, broke her leg, and he made her kill herself. And the girl said, I don't want to do this. Nobody wants to die like that. But she probably didn't want to be under his control anymore either. But going back to the end credit scene, so like I said, Yelena approaches and we see it's Natasha's tombstone, which is really weird to me because that whole thing has always been weird to me, that you have a tombstone and a grave but no body, because you know Clint didn't come back from Vormir with Natasha's body, so that's just weird to me in and of itself. But as she's there at the grave, all of a sudden we hear someone very loudly blowing their nose, and it turns out to be Contessa Valentina de Allegra Fontaine,
who just magically appeared. Yeah, just don't call her Val.
Just don't call her Val. But yeah, so apparently Yelena has been working with Val. I don't know if I want to say for Val or with Val.
I think for, because she specifically mentioned.
Yeah.
Oh, getting a raise. Yes. So Valentina says, oh yeah, I want a raise too, but you're going to earn yours. And she says, I thought I'd bring you your next target in person. How would you like to go after the guy who killed your sister? And she hands her a tablet with Clint Barton's photo on it. So automatically we know Yelena is going to be in the Hawkeye series.
Right. And see, I disagreed with that whole byplay, because that's not technically true.
It's not true, but think about who we're talking about. We're talking about Valentina. She's gonna misrepresent the facts to get what she wants.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know why she wants to go after Clint. I'm sure we'll find that out in the Hawkeye series, but she has a method to her madness.
And as far as they know, at most they know that Clint went off with Natasha and came back by himself.
Right.
So
because Valentina has a way of finding out those kinds of details.
Right. And this will probably go into how Clint lost his hearing too. Like her attacking him and him being in an explosion that kind of blows out his hearing, because they're saying he's gonna be deaf in the series, and he's deaf in the comics too. So
okay, I didn't know that.
So I think that's probably going to be something that will be something that Yelena did will be a cause of his hearing loss.
Okay.
I'm just interested to see them fight.
I am too.
Oh, yeah.
That's gonna be crazy.
Because at first I was thinking maybe she's at a disadvantage because he did take down Natasha, but then I started thinking about it and I was like, well, at the time, maybe Natasha was looking for a way out. So does you know how he knows that she was pulling her punches? She was probably pulling her punches then too to get captured. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
But the other thing is, I know that this movie was supposed to be our introduction to Valentina because it was supposed to come out last year, and then we were supposed to get her in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I actually like the fact that we got her in Falcon and the Winter Soldier first, because I feel like we got to know a little bit more about her character, even though we only saw her very briefly. I feel like her being in that series, we see, okay, she's kind of sort of a shady character. 2, she has her own agenda, and it looks like she's starting to collect people to fit whatever that agenda is. I think it worked better seeing her in Falcon and the Winter Soldier first, as opposed to seeing her in this first.
Yeah, and it makes me feel better all the times I've said that they weren't gonna put people in both. They weren't going to introduce people in the show that we haven't seen in the movie.
Right.
So,
mm-hmm.
but
mm-hmm.
they introduced, technically, she should have been introduced in the movie first, not the show. So, but I like the bridging of the MCU movie and the MCU TV. I like that bridging that they're doing there.
Yes, that you said we weren't going to get. Because not only is she in a movie and in the TV show, we know that now Yelena was in Black Widow and she's going to be in Hawkeye, and it looks like she's going to be in all 8 episodes of Hawkeye.
And wasn't she? And she was a young Avenger too, wasn't she?
That's the other thing I was going to say. Yeah. So I've seen people speculating that what Valentina is doing is she is starting to collect people for her team of Young Avengers, and that with Yelena going over to the Hawkeye series, she's going to meet what's her name's character?
Kate. Okay, guys.
Kate Bishop?
Yeah, Kate Bishop. Okay, question. Yeah. It's been a minute, but there is no Black Widow in Young Avengers, correct?
I'm looking now. Hold
no,
on.
I don't think so. Because you've got the boys, you've got Kate, you've got Isaiah Jr., Eli, you've got Wiccan Hoffman, you've got the Tony Stark,
Miss
Marvel.
And if you're talking about the current generation, Miss Marvel and the other chick that's going to show up.
But there's no Black Widow.
Yeah, so I'm looking online. Google, it says the members of the Young Avengers are Iron Lad, Hawkeye, Hulkling, Kid Loki, Miss America.
That's what I was trying to think of.
Novar, Patriot, Prodigy, Speed, Stature, Vision, and Wiccan.
Right. Yeah, there's no. Yeah. So maybe she's going to act as their handler, because she's about 8 years too old too.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a reason they're Young Avengers.
Okay.
Yeah, I think she's going to wind up being their handler, I think, more than anything. And I forgot about Stature.
But the other thing that's interesting about that is, like I said, we're getting 8 episodes for Hawkeye.
I want to go back to something Lori said about them setting up the Young Avengers. They're going to have to move pretty quickly on it, because they're having all these shows introducing all these characters like Miss Marvel, Miss America, Isaiah, Kate Bishop. They're lining all these people up, and they're not getting any younger.
That's true.
You know what I mean? All these are we're looking into late 2022 for some of this stuff.
They're gonna be middle-aged Avengers by the time they get around to it.
Well, they could already be filming and we just don't know.
Or they've already filmed it.
No, they would have been doing it here in Atlanta. We would have known.
Yeah, exactly.
Hanako, you would have known. Someone would have tipped you off and be like, "Oh, they're filming." So,
I'm saying,
Hanako.
You're plugged in, Hanako. You know everything.
Whatever. Come on now.
Believe me, I wish.
I agree. I think I'm absolutely positive. I think Hanako knows now. Hanako has a contract with Kevin Feige where she can't say anything. That's what it is.
Between you and our friend that does the rentals, we know things.
Yeah.
We see things.
I haven't heard anything about that though. But I mean, honestly, if they're trying to keep it a secret or trying to keep it a surprise, they probably would be. They probably could be filming. I mean, who knows? It might be under a secret project name, because I have heard of that before, where something was here filming and they put out information like it was something else totally different, and then it turned out to be, whatever. So,
well, Star Wars did that back in the day.
I'm gonna stand by what I said. Hanako would know.
100%. I
either she knows.
I have all the confidence.
You don't want to blow her sources.
Hanako is not that important. The grapevine.
All right.
Does anybody have any final thoughts about Black Widow? Mike, you haven't done your shout outs.
All right, real quick. First off, the one I want to shout out to earlier is Melina. Melina is known as the Iron Maiden in Marvel Comics. She has a way different storyline. Like she actually fights Natasha, but it's like she was affiliated with the Thunderbolts. One of her creators is Ralph Macchio. Ironically enough, there's no relation to the other Ralph Macchio. It's not the same guy. It's an entirely different guy. So yeah. But yeah, she's known as the Iron.
He's a 25-year employee at Marvel.
So that's what she is in the Marvel comic universe. Ohio 1995, when the movie starts. In 1995 is also the year that Captain Marvel is based in. So that gives you the parallel to that and Shield. Like that makes me want to go back and watch Captain Marvel to see if something happens then that tells us anything. But this is the same year that is done.
95.
1995. It said Ohio 1995.
That sounds right. Yeah, that's what it said.
No, I know that, but I'm trying to think. I thought Captain Marvel took place a little bit earlier.
I had to look it up too. I thought it was in the 80s, but yeah, it
was 90s. I remember 90s.
Okay. 1995. Also, shout out to Natasha watching Moonraker, my favorite James Bond movie of all time, and
her commentary on that was funny.
It's awesome. There were a couple parallels, like in Moonraker at the beginning, there was a skydive fighting scene like the one after the the red room was falling down. There was also a base way high up in the sky in Moonraker. It was actually in space, but it's kind of the same thing. Also, shout out to the vest. We didn't talk anywhere near enough about the vest. Because
the vest with all the pockets, the one that was very versatile.
Exactly.
She even added some of her own.
Right. She
customized it.
That was so MacGyver. It was
shout out to the vest. That was awesome. And she gave it to her. And I was like, oh, dang, that's a nice little connection to Infinity Wars. It's like the same vest that she had on in there. That was pretty cool. Shout out to the prison was called Seventh Circle. And that's kind of reference to Dante's Inferno. The Seventh Circle of Hell is actually for acts of violence, so it's kind of like a prison. So shout out to that. Also, shout out to 3.5 Floppies having important info that can actually change the world again. I'm glad to see that came back.
I think that the way that they really took care with noticing the small details to make it feel authentically in between those two movies, Civil War and Infinity War, I appreciated those little details because it really did make it feel like that's where it was supposed to be. And I think when I go back and do a rewatch of those movies, I'm now going to watch it in the order it should have been: Infinity War, and then Black Widow, and then Endgame, and just to see how it flows watching it that way. Like, we know that's where it's supposed to go, and it seems like it's going to fit. I just want to actually visually look at it that way.
That's probably going to be dope.
Yeah. I might throw that on tomorrow when I'm working, just to watch. I thought about that too, because doing a rewatch.
Also, real quick shout out to Taskmaster's fast ass tank chase scene. Kind of looking like the T2 semi chase when they were going through the gully. Like there've been a lot of kind of parallels to that. Also, shout out to Taskmistress's heads up display, resembling the heads up display that Tony had when he had Friday to pick out the weaknesses in Cap when they were fighting, because it did basically the same thing. And also Dreykov was controlling it because it actually had a message at the bottom that said change your mission parameters, get the vials, when she was fighting her. So Dreykov's bitch ass was controlling her with that too.
Well, I don't know if I want to say that he was controlling it. I think when they put the protocols in the chip in the back of her head, she was originally supposed to be looking for Yelena and the vials. And I don't know how they were tracking the vials, but she had to be tracking the vials some kind of way, because for her to find Natasha in such a remote area, she had to be tracking the vials, maybe from the barcode that was there or something. And then once she realized it was Natasha and not Yelena, and then the attention was drawn to the vials, it's like the protocol switched on the thing. Okay, well, this is not the person we're looking for, so let's go for the secondary objective. I don't think he was necessarily controlling her at that point. I think that was just what the protocol was that was programmed into her helmet.
Right. Okay, I can go along with that. Shout out to Mila Jovovich's daughter playing young Natasha, which is a pretty interesting little tidbit too.
Was Ever Anderson
familiar?
Yeah.
Yes, I thought that who that was. Yes.
Yeah, that's Milla's daughter. Also shout out to Think Up Anger featuring Malia J for that version of Smells Like Teen Spirit
That was cool.
during the opening credits.
That was a
cool.
beautiful
That was a great cover. That was dope. Yeah.
That was one of the best things in the movie.
Yes, it fit very perfectly with the scene, especially like I said, we were getting those images kind of going back and forth between the fake holiday pictures and videos and what was going on with the girls being taken and seeing the training in the red room. It was kind of interspersed with all of those, and it was an amazing edit.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, shout out to the pictures being like standard spy shit. Like, okay, we need to take these pictures to look like a regular family. Like, in case someone came over and is like, wow, so you got any pictures? Yeah, see, look. Yeah, see the girl, this is girls at Easter, this is the girls at Christmas. Yeah, see, look, we're normal. Yes, we are normal. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're normal. Yes. This movie was probably a 7 for me. I really wanted it to be more than it was, but I just have to it's like I have to, instead of being like a true fanboy, I kind of have to be honest. Like, there were certain parts of the movie I love, but there was like other things that I just kind of can't get past. So, I mean, I liked it, but it still had it, just like most movies do, it had its issues for me.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie. There were a couple of things that bothered me, but they weren't major enough for me to not have a great opinion about this movie. I just wish they had given it to us earlier, and I wish we would have more of Natasha's story. But I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I mean, I wish there would have been more of like that car chase scene when they were bantering back and forth. I mean, that stuff, but that was like great stuff. Like,
Yeah.
are you going to drive?
Here's the funny thing. Natasha in that moment, it's almost like once they started running for their lives, she really did flip into big sister mode. Like when Yelena stole the car, she was like, you can't go around stealing people's cars. Excuse me, Natasha, how much damage have you done? And I'm sure you've stolen a motorbike or two doing stuff for the Avengers. And then you're going to tell her she can't steal. And then when she sees that Taskmaster is about to do something to the car, she's like, put on your seatbelt. She's like, oh my God, you're such a mom. I was like, yeah, Natasha is in full big sister mode. And it was so funny. But it was so
I have a
fun to
weird
watch.
complaint about the movie.
Wait, hold on.
There wasn't enough action.
What movie were you watching?
At the end, what I mean, okay, let me clarify that. I wanted more fight scenes. That's a better clarification. I wanted more fight scenes and I wanted better fight scenes.
You wanted more
because the movie scenes? Yes, and I wanted better. What? Anthony's laughing at me.
I
wanted you're smiling.
You're channeling me.
Oh, Jesus.
You were accent.
You know what I mean.
I wouldn't have said it about this movie, but I can understand it. To me, it just seemed like there was like a series of action set pieces.
It was kind of sporadic, yeah. I see what you're saying. I
guess,
do see what you're saying. Yeah, the fighting was kind of sporadic. I get that. Yeah, I can see that.
It was something was missing a little bit. I like I said, it was cool. I liked it a lot, but just something. It didn't feel like a Marvel movie. Maybe because we've been watching so much Marvel from Disney all year long. We just have gotten used to watching all this Marvel stuff, but it didn't feel special. That's probably what I want to sew up and say. It was good, but it just didn't give me that Marvel goosebumps.
I just think that it was just I've had too much time to think about it. It's like I'm probably thinking too much about it. That's what it is. So, but I mean, it was still a good movie. I'd still see it again.
Can we agree that if you take this movie and you compare it with Ms. Marvel, they just can't seem to make the female movies as good as the male movies for whatever reason? I have only seen Ms. Marvel once.
Captain Marvel?
Captain Marvel, yes. Okay. I've only seen it once because I hated the movie.
Really?
I thought the movie was atrocious. And I love Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, love that whole thing. The movie is, to me, is virtually unwatchable.
Really?
Wow.
And I have seen bits and pieces of it since then, but I cannot watch that movie all the way through. I think they did a horrible job with that movie.
I mean, I think there were certain parts that were kind of weird and bad, like. But it's like the Flurkin scratching Fury's eye, and that's why he's wearing the eye patch. I thought that was dumb.
That was the best part of the movie.
That was dumb. I was like,
that
really?
was the best part of the movie.
But I mean, I thought there were great parts. Like I thought Stan Lee's cameo was awesome, only because I'm a Kevin Smith stan. So I literally geeked out in the theater about that.
I love Kevin Smith.
But yeah, I actually like Captain Marvel. I thought it was a good movie. But I'm weird.
You mentioned Stan Lee. This is the first Marvel movie that we got that his cameo is not in it.
Oh, damn,
that made me sad. And I did see something where it says that Marvel has made the decision that they will not be using any previous footage, any previous audio for Stan Lee cameos, like his cameos have come to an end in the MCU. So that makes me sad.
Well, what they're not saying is that his daughter probably sued him to the nth of their teeth not to use her father's images without forking over huge amounts of money.
Yeah, that could be true too.
They should totally replace Stan Lee with Deadpool. You should have Deadpool.
That would be funny. No.
Yes.
I want Sam Jack to randomly show up, being Sam Jack in the movies.
No, I like the Deadpool suggestion. I do.
Just like having walking around randomly with a chimichanga, like eating and looking around, like.
That'd be awesome. That'd be funny.
I'm 100% with that.
We have any final thoughts on Black Widow?
Nah, I'm good.
All right. Well, in that case, that's it for our show. You can find us online at www.fandomhybrid.com. We are on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Fandom Hybrid. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and other major podcast streaming platforms. Thanks for listening. We hope you join the conversation next time.